Balance, though a concept we experience daily, reveals layers of complexity when observed in the smallest architects of our world. Insects, comprising over 80% of all known animal species, have mastered the art of equilibrium across countless dimensions, from the delicate poise of a walking stick navigating wind-blown branches to the collective stability of ant colonies organizing vast underground cities. These remarkable creatures demonstrate balance in ways both physical and ecological. Tonight, we explore how six-legged beings maintain their place in an ever-shifting world, discovering that their secrets of balance might just help us find our own peaceful center as we drift toward sleep. In the quiet moments before dawn, when the world holds its breath between night and day, a small miracle of engineering begins to unfold. On a blade of grass still heavy with dew, a beetle slowly awakens and prepares for its morning journey. As it takes its first tentative steps, each movement demonstrates principles of balance that have been refined over hundreds of millions of years. The physics of insect locomotion represents one of nature's most elegant solutions to the challenge of remaining upright while in motion. Unlike mammals, which rely on dynamic balance and constant corrections to stay stable on 2 or 4 legs, insects have evolved a fundamentally different approach. Their 6-legged design creates what engineers call static stability, a condition where balance is maintained not through constant adjustment, but through the geometric arrangement of support points. Consider the triangular foundation that forms when an insect places 3 of its legs on the ground while lifting the other 3. This tripod configuration creates an inherently stable platform, much like a 3-legged stool that cannot wobble on an uneven surface. As the insect moves forward, it maintains this stability by alternating between 2 triangular support patterns. The front and rear legs on one side move forward simultaneously, with the middle leg on the opposite side, while the remaining 3 legs maintain contact with the ground. This alternating tripod gait, as researchers have termed it, allows insects to move with remarkable efficiency while never losing their stable foundation. Watch a carpenter ant traversing the vertical surface of a tree trunk, and you will observe this principle in action. Even when navigating obstacles or changing direction, the ant maintains at least 3 points of contact with the surface, ensuring that it never falls. The elegance of this system becomes even more apparent when we consider the mathematical precision underlying each step. The insect's nervous system must coordinate 6 independent limbs, calculating the optimal placement of each foot to maintain both forward progress and structural stability. Yet this complex computation occurs without conscious thought, executed by neural circuits that operate with the precision of a Swiss timepiece. Beyond the basic mechanics of walking, insects must also contend with the physics of their environment. Their small size subjects them to forces that larger animals rarely consider. Surface tension, for instance, becomes a significant factor when an insect encounters water. A human stepping into a puddle experiences water as a fluid that yields easily to pressure. For a water strider, however, the surface of a pond behaves more like a flexible membrane, one that can support the insect's weight if approached with the proper technique. The water strider distributes its weight across 4 specialized legs, each tipped with thousands of tiny hairs that trap air and prevent breaking through the water's surface. As it moves across this liquid landscape, the insect creates small dimples in the water, much like a finger pressed gently against a rubber sheet. These depressions propel the water strider forward as it pushes against the surface tension, gliding with minimal effort across its aquatic domain. Air resistance presents another challenge that insects have mastered through evolutionary innovation. For creatures measuring only millimeters in length, moving through air can feel like swimming through honey. The viscosity of air, relative to their size, creates drag forces that would overwhelm less adapted organisms. Yet insects navigate this invisible obstacle course with remarkable grace. Their secret lies partly in their low profile and streamlined body shapes. A butterfly's wings, when viewed in cross section, reveal an airfoil design that would impress any aeronautical engineer. The curved upper surface and flatter lower surface create pressure differentials that generate lift while minimizing drag. During flight, the wings twist and flex in complex patterns, adjusting their angle of attack dozens of times per second to maintain optimal airflow. The dragonfly takes this aerial mastery to even greater heights. With four wings operating independently, it can hover motionless in midair, dart sideways without turning its body, or reverse direction in a fraction of a second. Each wing beat is precisely timed and angled, creating vortices of air that the insect manipulates like invisible tools. High-speed photography reveals that dragonflies generate lift not just on the downstroke of their wings, but also on the upstroke, effectively doubling their aerodynamic efficiency. Center of gravity plays a crucial role in insect stability, both on the ground and in the air. Most insects carry their heaviest components, the head with its sensory apparatus, and the abdomen containing digestive and reproductive organs, relatively close to their legs. This low center of gravity makes them naturally resistant to tipping over, much like a well-designed racing car that hugs the ground during high-speed turns. When walking on narrow surfaces like twigs or wire, insects demonstrate their mastery of balance through subtle shifts in posture. They may lower their body closer to the surface, extend their legs wider for greater stability, or even use their antennae as counterbalances. Some species employ their wings as stabilizers, making minute adjustments to compensate for gusts of wind or unexpected movements of their perch. The physics of climbing presents yet another set of challenges that insects have conquered through specialized adaptations. Gecko-like adhesive pads on many species' feet utilize van der Waals forces, the same molecular attractions that allow geckos to walk on glass. These microscopic forces, individually weak but collectively powerful when multiplied across thousands of tiny contact points, enable insects to climb smooth vertical surfaces or even walk upside down on ceilings. Temperature affects insect movement in ways that illuminate the delicate relationship between physics and biology. As cold-blooded creatures, insects must work within the thermal constraints of their environment. Cold temperatures slow their metabolic processes and make their movements sluggish, while excessive heat can denature the proteins that power their muscles. Many species have evolved behavioral strategies to optimize their operating temperature, basking in sunlight to warm their flight muscles before takeoff, or seeking shade when the day becomes too intense. The spring-loading mechanism, found in many jumping insects, represents perhaps the most dramatic example of insects harnessing physics for locomotion. Fleas, grasshoppers, and click beetles store elastic energy in specialized structures, then release it explosively to achieve remarkable accelerations. A flea can accelerate from rest to over 100 body lengths per second in less than a millisecond, experiencing forces that would render a human unconscious. As we observe these tiny athletes navigating their miniature world, we begin to appreciate the sophisticated engineering that underlies even the simplest movements. Each step represents a triumph of biomechanics, each flight a demonstration of aerodynamic principles that human engineers still study and attempt to replicate. The next time you watch an ant carrying a crumb many times its own weight across uneven terrain, or observe a moth dancing around a porch light with seemingly impossible aerial agility, remember that you are witnessing millions of years of evolutionary problem solving in action. These small creatures have mastered the physics of movement through elegant solutions that emerge from the perfect marriage of form and function. In the gentle choreography of insect locomotion, we find echoes of universal principles that govern all motion in our physical world. From the quantum scale to the cosmic, balance emerges as a fundamental requirement for stability and progress. As we settle into our own restful balance for the night, we might take comfort in knowing that countless tiny engineers continue their precise work in the darkness around us, each step a testament to the quiet perfection that underlies the natural world. In the amber light of evening, as shadows lengthen and the world prepares for its nightly transformation, a moth begins to stir from its daytime rest. Hidden beneath the loose bark of an oak tree, this creature possesses sensory capabilities that would astound any engineer attempting to design a navigation system of comparable sophistication. As darkness falls and the moth takes flight, it demonstrates how insects have evolved extraordinary sensory networks to perceive their world and maintain perfect balance within it. The foundation of insect spatial awareness lies in their compound eyes, intricate structures that represent a fundamentally different approach to vision than our own. Where human eyes function like sophisticated cameras, focusing light through a single lens onto a retinal surface, insect eyes operate more like arrays of tiny telescopes, each pointing in a slightly different direction. A single compound eye may contain thousands of these individual units, called ommatidia, each capturing its own narrow slice of the visual world. This compound design creates a visual experience that emphasizes movement detection over fine detail. When a predator approaches or prey scurries past, the changing patterns of light and shadow cascade across hundreds of ommatidia simultaneously, creating an unmistakable signal that something is moving. The insect's brain processes these signals with remarkable speed, often triggering escape responses faster than a human eye could even detect the approaching threat. For creatures that must maintain balance while navigating complex three-dimensional environments, this motion-sensitive vision proves invaluable. A fly landing on a flower can detect the slightest sway in the wind, adjusting its grip and posture before the movement becomes destabilizing. A beetle crossing a leaf can sense the approach of a bird's shadow long before the predator comes close enough to strike. The positioning of compound eyes also enhances spatial awareness. Many insects have eyes that wrap around the sides of their heads, providing nearly 360-degree vision. This panoramic view allows them to monitor their environment continuously, detecting changes in any direction without the need to turn their heads. Some species have even evolved specialized regions within their compound eyes, with upward-facing ommatidia optimized for detecting aerial threats and downward-facing ones for monitoring the ground below. Complementing their visual systems, insects rely heavily on mechanoreceptors, specialized sensory cells that detect mechanical stimuli such as touch, vibration, and changes in pressure. These receptors are distributed throughout an insect's body, but are particularly concentrated in areas critical for balance and navigation. The legs, antennae, and wing bases are densely packed with mechanoreceptors that provide constant feedback about the insect's interaction with its environment. Consider the remarkable sensitivity of an ant's legs as it navigates across the forest floor. Each step provides a wealth of information about the surface texture, slope, and stability of the substrate. Mechanoreceptors in the leg joints detect the angle and force of each movement, while receptors in the feet assess the grip and traction available. This continuous stream of tactile information allows the ant to adjust its gait in real time, shortening its stride on steep slopes or widening its stance on unstable surfaces. Antennae serve as perhaps the most versatile sensory organs in the insect world. These flexible appendages house an extraordinary array of receptors capable of detecting chemical signals, air movements, vibrations, temperature changes, and even humidity levels. For many insects, antennae function as primary tools for spatial orientation, constantly sampling the environment and providing crucial information about the insect's position and surroundings. The constant movement of antennae creates a dynamic sensory map of the immediate environment. As an insect moves forward, its antennae sweep from side to side, detecting obstacles before they are encountered and assessing the suitability of potential paths. This active sensing strategy allows insects to navigate in complete darkness or through dense vegetation where visual cues are limited or unavailable. Wing mechanoreceptors deserve special attention for their role in flight balance. At the base of each wing, clusters of sensory cells monitor the wing's position, angle, and the forces acting upon it. During flight, these receptors provide moment-by-moment feedback about airspeed, wind direction, and the effectiveness of each wing beat. This information enables the precise adjustments necessary for stable flight, allowing insects to compensate for gusts of wind or changes in their flight path. Gravity detection represents another crucial aspect of insect spatial awareness. Many insects possess statoliths, small dense particles within specialized organs that settle under the influence of gravity. As an insect tilts or rotates, these particles shift position, triggering responses in surrounding sensory cells. This biological equivalent of a spirit level helps insects maintain proper orientation, particularly important for species that spend time on vertical surfaces or navigate in three-dimensional aerial environments. The integration of gravitational information with other sensory inputs creates a comprehensive understanding of spatial orientation. An insect walking along a tree branch uses its statoliths to detect the angle of the branch, its mechanoreceptors to assess the stability of the surface, and its compound eyes to monitor for obstacles or threats. This multisensory approach ensures that balance is maintained even when individual sensory systems might be compromised or provide ambiguous information. Hair-like structures called sensilla add another layer of environmental monitoring. These microscopic sensors, scattered across the insect's body surface, detect minute air movements that might indicate the approach of predators or the presence of obstacles. A spider's web brushing against these sensilla can alert an insect to the danger before it becomes entangled. Similarly, the wake turbulence from another insect's flight creates air disturbances that can be detected and used for navigation or avoiding collisions. Temperature and humidity sensors contribute to spatial awareness in subtle but important ways. These receptors help insects locate favorable microclimates and avoid potentially harmful conditions. A butterfly, seeking a warm, sunny spot for thermoregulation, relies on temperature gradients detected by specialized sensilla, while insects living in arid environments use humidity sensors to locate moisture sources and avoid desiccation. The processing of sensory information occurs through neural networks that prioritize speed and efficiency over detailed analysis. Unlike vertebrate brains, which might spend considerable time analyzing and interpreting sensory data, insect nervous systems are optimized for rapid response. Critical balance corrections must occur within milliseconds to be effective, leaving little time for complex cognitive processing. This streamlined approach to sensory processing manifests in the form of reflex arcs and pre programmed responses. When specific combinations of sensory inputs are detected, corresponding motor responses are triggered automatically. A sudden change in light intensity might initiate an escape response, while the detection of an unstable surface could trigger adjustments in leg position and muscle tension. These automated responses free the insect's limited neural resources for other tasks while ensuring that essential balance reactions occur with optimal speed. The remarkable sensitivity of insect sensory systems becomes apparent when we consider their ability to detect environmental changes that are imperceptible to human senses. A honeybee can detect the electrical fields generated by flowers, information that helps in navigation and foraging. Many insects can perceive polarized light patterns in the sky, using these celestial compasses for long-distance navigation, even on cloudy days when the sun itself is not visible. Vibration detection reaches extraordinary levels of sophistication in some species. Web-building spiders can distinguish between the vibrations caused by struggling prey, the movements of potential mates, and the oscillations created by wind or other environmental disturbances. Each type of vibration creates a distinct pattern that the spider's sensory system can identify and respond to appropriately. The integration of multiple sensory modalities creates a rich perceptual world that enables insects to maintain balance in environments that would challenge even the most advanced artificial systems. By combining visual motion detection with tactile feedback, gravitational orientation with chemical sensing, and vibrational awareness with temperature monitoring, insects create a comprehensive understanding of their spatial relationship to the world around them. As we observe these small creatures navigating their complex sensory landscapes, we gain insight into the sophisticated neural processing that underlies even the simplest behaviors. The moth that began our journey, now actively hunting in the darkness, demonstrates how millions of years of evolution have refined sensory systems to achieve remarkable feats of perception and balance. Its compound eyes track the faintest movements in the shadows. Its antennae sample chemical trails on the evening breeze, and its mechanoreceptors monitor every subtle shift in air pressure that might indicate the presence of food or danger. In this intricate dance of sensation and response, we discover that the maintenance of balance extends far beyond the simple mechanics of staying upright. It encompasses a continuous dialogue between organism and environment, a conversation conducted through the language of light, sound, touch, and chemical signal. As these tiny sensory specialists continue their nocturnal activities, they remind us that awareness itself is a form of balance, a delicate equilibrium between the inner world of perception and the outer world of reality. In the stillness of midnight, when the world has settled into its deepest quiet, a cricket begins its rhythmic serenade. Each chirp emerges from a precise orchestration of neural signals, muscle contractions, and wing movements that occur with metronomic regularity. This simple sound represents one of nature's most elegant demonstrations of how relatively simple neural networks can produce remarkably complex and coordinated behaviors. The insect nervous system operates on principles of distributed control and parallel processing that differ fundamentally from the centralized architecture found in vertebrates. Where mammals rely heavily on a dominant brain to coordinate most activities, insects employ a more federal approach with multiple neural clusters called ganglia sharing responsibility for different aspects of movement and balance. This decentralized design creates a robust system that can continue functioning even when individual components are damaged or compromised. At the heart of insect motor control lies the concept of central pattern generators, neural circuits that produce rhythmic motor patterns without requiring constant input from higher brain centers. These specialized networks generate the basic rhythms of walking, flying, and other repetitive behaviors through their intrinsic connectivity and timing properties. Like biological metronomes, they establish the fundamental tempo and coordination that underlies most insect locomotion. The walking pattern of a cockroach illustrates this principle beautifully. Deep within the insect's thoracic ganglia, neural circuits generate the alternating tripod gait that we explored in earlier chapters. These circuits operate automatically, producing the proper sequence of leg movements without conscious oversight. The cockroach can walk across familiar terrain while its brain focuses on navigation, food detection, or threat assessment, trusting the central pattern generators to maintain proper coordination. Reflexes add another layer of sophistication to insect motor control. These rapid, automatic responses allow insects to react to immediate threats or changes in their environment without waiting for higher neural centers to process the information. When a fly detects the approach of a predator through its motion-sensitive vision, reflex circuits trigger an escape response within milliseconds. The insect leaps into the air and begins evasive flight maneuvers before its brain has fully identified the nature of the threat. The neural architecture supporting these reflexes follows elegant principles of engineering efficiency. Sensory neurons connect directly to motor neurons through relatively few synaptic connections, minimizing the time required for signal transmission. This direct wiring sacrifices flexibility for speed, creating responses that are rapid but relatively stereotyped. A cockroach, startled by a sudden stimulus, will always execute essentially the same escape maneuver, but it will do so with extraordinary consistency and speed. Ganglia serve as both relay stations and processing centers within the insect nervous system. Each ganglion contains thousands of neurons organized into functional modules that handle specific aspects of motor control. The prothoracic ganglion coordinates movements of the front legs and head, while the mesothoracic and metathoracic ganglia control the middle and rear legs, respectively. This modular organization allows for local control of motor functions while maintaining overall coordination through interganglionic connections. The sophistication of ganglionic processing becomes apparent when we consider how insects handle obstacles or unexpected perturbations during locomotion. When a walking insect encounters a stick or stone in its path, local neural circuits in the relevant ganglion can modify the basic walking pattern to lift the leg higher or step around the obstacle. This local adaptation occurs without disrupting the overall gait rhythm, demonstrating the remarkable autonomy of individual ganglia while maintaining coordination with the larger system. Flight control represents perhaps the most demanding neural challenge that insects face. The rapid wing beat frequencies required for flight, often exceeding 200 beats per second in some species, push neural control systems to their physical limits. Direct neural control of each wing beat would require impossibly fast nerve conduction and processing speeds. Instead, insects have evolved asynchronous flight muscles that can contract multiple times for each neural impulse, driven by the mechanical properties of the flight system itself. The role of the nervous system in flight shifts from direct control of wing beats to modulation of flight muscle tension and wing angle. Neural signals adjust the overall power output and steering inputs, while the mechanical flight system maintains the rapid oscillations necessary for lift generation. This division of labor between neural control and mechanical systems allows insects to achieve flight performance that would be impossible through neural control alone. Sensory feedback plays a crucial role in maintaining balance and coordination within insect motor control systems. Proprioceptors embedded within muscles and joints provide continuous information about limb position and muscle tension. This feedback allows the nervous system to detect and correct deviations from intended movements, maintaining precise control even as external conditions change. The integration of sensory feedback with central pattern generators creates adaptive motor systems that can respond to environmental variation while maintaining basic coordination patterns. A bee flying in turbulent air uses visual and mechanosensory feedback to modulate its wing beat amplitude and frequency, compensating for gusts and air currents while maintaining its basic flight pattern. The central pattern generators provide the foundation, while sensory feedback adds the fine-tuning necessary for effective performance in variable conditions. Neuroplasticity, though more limited in insects than in vertebrates, still plays an important role in motor learning and adaptation. Young insects often show improvements in motor coordination as they mature, suggesting that neural circuits can be refined through experience. Some species demonstrate more dramatic examples of motor learning, such as bees that become more efficient at flower handling through practice, or ants that learn to navigate complex three-dimensional environments. The energetic efficiency of insect neural networks contributes significantly to their overall balance and survival success. Operating with orders of magnitude fewer neurons than vertebrate brains, insect nervous systems achieve remarkable functionality while consuming minimal energy. This efficiency is crucial for small organisms, where every calorie must be carefully allocated between competing demands for growth, reproduction, and survival. Neuromodulators add another dimension to insect motor control by allowing the same neural circuits to produce different behaviors depending on the internal state of the animal. Chemical signals such as octopamine can alter the responsiveness of motor circuits, making an insect more or less likely to initiate movement or changing the vigor of motor responses. A hungry insect may show enhanced motor responses to food-related stimuli, while a satiated individual might be less responsive to the same cues. The coordination between different motor systems reveals the sophisticated integration capabilities of insect nervous systems. When a flying insect prepares to land, its visual system provides information about the approaching surface, while its legs extend and prepare for contact. The transition from flight to walking requires precise timing and coordination between multiple neural subsystems, all orchestrated without conscious oversight. Temperature effects on neural function create additional challenges for insect motor control. As cold-blooded organisms, insects must cope with the slowing of neural transmission and muscle contraction that occurs at low temperatures. Many species have evolved behavioral strategies to optimize their operating temperature, warming their flight muscles through shivering or basking before attempting to fly. The study of insect neural networks has inspired advances in robotics and artificial intelligence, where researchers attempt to recreate the efficient and robust control systems found in nature. Simple neural network architectures based on insect designs have proven capable of controlling walking robots and autonomous vehicles, demonstrating the practical value of understanding these biological systems. At the molecular level, ion channels and neurotransmitters create the basic mechanisms through which neural signals are generated and transmitted. Sodium and potassium channels generate action potentials that propagate along nerve fibers, while calcium channels trigger neurotransmitter release at synapses. These fundamental processes occur millions of times per second within each insect, creating the electrical symphony that underlies all coordinated movement. The precision timing required for effective motor control emerges from the temporal properties of neural circuits themselves. Some neurons fire in precise rhythms, while others respond only to specific patterns of input. The interaction between different types of neurons creates complex temporal dynamics that can generate sophisticated motor patterns from relatively simple neural architectures. As we contemplate the remarkable achievements of insect motor control, we gain appreciation for the elegant solutions that evolution has discovered for the challenges of coordination and balance. The cricket's song that began our exploration continues its steady rhythm, each note a testament to the precise neural orchestration that makes coordinated movement possible. In the darkness around us, millions of insects navigate their world through the guidance of neural networks that achieve extraordinary functionality through principles of simplicity, efficiency, and robust design. These small creatures demonstrate that intelligence need not require complexity, that sophisticated behaviors can emerge from relatively simple neural architectures when properly organized and coordinated. As we prepare for our own rest, we might find comfort in knowing that the natural world continues its perfectly coordinated activities through neural mechanisms that have been refined across millions of years of evolutionary testing. As the first pale light of dawn touches the forest floor, a different kind of balance begins to reveal itself. Beneath a fallen log, thousands of worker ants are already deep into their daily routines, each individual following simple rules that collectively create one of nature's most sophisticated organizational systems. This is the realm of social balance, where the stability of entire communities emerges from the coordinated actions of countless individuals, each playing their part in a grand symphony of cooperation. The concept of balance within insect societies extends far beyond the physical equilibrium we have explored in individual creatures. Here, balance manifests as homeostasis at the colony level, a dynamic stability that maintains optimal conditions for survival and reproduction despite constant changes in the external environment. Like a living organism maintaining its internal temperature and chemistry, insect colonies regulate their population structure, resource allocation, and behavioral responses to ensure the collective welfare of the group. Consider the remarkable organization within a honeybee colony, where tens of thousands of individuals coordinate their activities with precision that would challenge any human organization. The colony maintains careful balance between different castes of workers, each specialized for specific tasks. Nurse bees tend to developing larvae. Foragers collect nectar and pollen from distant flowers. Guard bees protect the entrance, and builder bees construct and maintain the intricate wax combs that serve as the colony's infrastructure. This division of labor represents a form of social balance that optimizes efficiency while maintaining flexibility. The colony can adjust the allocation of workers to different tasks based on changing needs. During periods of abundant nectar flow, more workers shift to foraging activities. When the colony faces threats, additional bees take on guard duties. This dynamic reallocation occurs without central planning or oversight, emerging instead from local interactions between individuals following simple behavioral rules. The mechanisms underlying this behavioral flexibility reveal the elegant simplicity that characterizes many aspects of insect social organization. Young worker bees typically begin their careers performing tasks within the hive, such as cleaning cells and feeding larvae. As they age, they gradually transition to more dangerous outside work, like foraging. This age-based division of labor, called temporal polyethism, ensures that the colony's most experienced individuals are allocated to its most critical and risky activities. However, this age-based system remains flexible enough to respond to colony needs. If foragers are lost to predation or adverse weather, younger workers can accelerate their behavioral development and begin foraging earlier than normal. Conversely, if the colony has abundant foragers but lacks nurses, older workers can revert to inside tasks. This behavioral plasticity allows the colony to maintain balance even when faced with unexpected challenges or opportunities. Communication systems within insect societies create the information networks necessary for coordinated decision making. The famous waggle dance of honeybees exemplifies how simple signals can convey complex information. A returning forager encodes the distance, direction, and quality of a food source into a ritualized dance performed on the comb surface. Other workers observe these dances and use the information to locate promising foraging sites. The collective intelligence that emerges from these individual communications often leads to optimal group decisions. When multiple foragers discover different food sources, they compete for recruits through their dances. Higher quality food sources inspire more vigorous dancing, attracting more followers and gradually concentrating the colony's foraging effort on the most profitable locations. This process, known as positive feedback, amplifies good decisions while allowing poor choices to fade away through lack of reinforcement. Ant colonies demonstrate similar principles of distributed decision-making through chemical communication. Foraging ants lay down pheromone trails as they travel between their nest and food sources. These chemical signals create a dynamic communication network that guides the movement of other colony members. Successful foragers deposit more pheromone, strengthening the trail and attracting additional workers. Unsuccessful routes gradually fade as the chemical signals evaporate, automatically eliminating inefficient pathways from the colony's behavioral repertoire. The regulation of colony growth and reproduction requires sophisticated feedback mechanisms that balance current needs against future prospects. Social insect colonies must determine when to allocate resources to producing new workers versus investing in reproductive individuals who will establish new colonies. This decision involves assessing factors such as colony size, resource availability, season, and the age of the founding queen. Termite colonies provide compelling examples of how environmental feedback influences social organization. These insects construct elaborate ventilation systems within their mounds, creating air currents that regulate temperature and humidity throughout the nest. Workers continuously monitor local conditions and adjust their construction activities accordingly. If a section becomes too warm, workers may open new ventilation shafts or modify existing passages. If humidity drops too low, They may seal certain openings or relocate sensitive larvae to more suitable chambers. The coordination required for such construction projects demonstrates remarkable collective problem solving abilities. Individual termites follow simple rules about when and where to deposit building materials, yet their combined efforts create complex architectural structures with sophisticated environmental control systems. No single termite understands the overall design, yet the colony collectively constructs edifices that would challenge human engineers. Conflict resolution within insect societies reveals additional mechanisms for maintaining social balance. Despite their general cooperation, social insects sometimes face situations where individual interests diverge from collective welfare. Worker bees, for instance, retain the ability to lay eggs under certain circumstances, potentially competing with their queen for reproductive opportunities. The colony employs various mechanisms to suppress such conflicts, including worker policing behaviors that eliminate eggs laid by other workers. These policing behaviors emerge from the genetic relationships within insect societies. Due to their unusual sex determination system, worker bees are more closely related to their sisters than to their own potential offspring. This genetic asymmetry makes it advantageous for workers to enforce reproductive monopoly by their queen rather than tolerating reproduction by their sisters. The result is a stable social contract that maintains colony cohesion while channeling reproductive competition into constructive activities. Territory defense represents another arena where social balance plays a crucial role. Many ant species establish and defend territories around their nests, engaging in complex negotiations with neighboring colonies to establish boundaries. These territorial disputes rarely involve direct violence, instead, relying on chemical marking, display behaviors, and ritualized confrontations that minimize casualties while establishing clear spatial boundaries. The maintenance of these territorial boundaries requires constant vigilance and communication among colony members. Patrol workers regularly inspect the perimeter, refreshing boundary markers and monitoring for incursions by neighboring colonies. When boundaries are challenged, the colony can rapidly mobilize defenders through chemical alarm signals that recruit workers from throughout the nest. This collective defense system allows even small colonies to protect valuable resources against larger competitors. Emergency response capabilities within insect societies demonstrate the robustness that emerges from distributed organization. When faced with disasters such as floods, fires, or predator attacks, colonies can rapidly reorganize their activities to protect critical assets. Ant colonies threatened by flooding often form living rafts, with workers linking their bodies together to create buoyant platforms that keep the queen and larvae safe above the waterline. These emergency behaviors are not learned or planned in advance, but emerge spontaneously from simple behavioral rules that individual workers follow when facing crisis conditions. The same mechanisms that coordinate normal foraging and construction activities can be rapidly redirected to address immediate threats, demonstrating the adaptive flexibility that characterizes successful social systems. The seasonal cycles that govern many insect societies require long-term planning and resource management capabilities that rival those of human organizations. Honeybee colonies must accumulate sufficient honey stores to survive winter months when no nectar sources are available. This requires accurate assessment of current stores, prediction of future needs, and coordination of foraging activities across thousands of workers operating over multiple months. Social insect colonies also demonstrate remarkable abilities to learn and adapt their behaviors based on experience. Colonies can develop preferences for certain types of food sources, learn to avoid areas with high predation risk, and modify their foraging strategies based on the success of past activities. This collective learning occurs through the accumulation of individual experiences shared through communication networks, creating institutional knowledge that persists longer than the lifespan of any individual colony member. The study of social balance in insect colonies has provided insights that extend far beyond entomology, influencing fields such as computer science, economics, and organizational management. Algorithms based on ant foraging behavior are used to solve complex optimization problems, while principles of distributed decision making found in bee colonies inform the design of human organizations and artificial intelligence systems. As dawn fully arrives and illuminates the forest floor, the ant colony beneath the log continues its ancient routines, each worker contributing to a collective enterprise that has endured for millions of years. In their seamless coordination and adaptive responses to changing conditions, these small societies demonstrate that balance need not require central control or complex planning. Sometimes the most stable systems emerge from the simple interactions of many individuals, each following basic rules while contributing to something far greater than themselves. This lesson in social balance offers profound insights as we consider our own place within the larger human community, reminding us that individual actions, however small, contribute to collective outcomes that shape the world around us. In the quiet hours when morning mist rises from meadow grass, a delicate web of relationships unfolds with each passing moment. A butterfly alights on a wildflower, its proboscis unfurling to reach deep into the blossom's heart. This simple act of feeding represents far more than individual sustenance. It exemplifies the intricate connections that bind insects to their ecological communities and maintain the broader balance of natural systems. The position of insects within ecological networks demonstrates how individual balance extends beyond the organism to encompass entire communities of interacting species. Each insect species occupies multiple roles simultaneously, serving as predator and prey, pollinator and herbivore, decomposer and food source. These overlapping relationships create webs of interdependence that stabilize ecosystems through redundancy and mutual support. Pollination relationships reveal some of the most intimate partnerships between insects and the plant communities they serve. Over millions of years, flowering plants and their insect visitors have evolved together, developing increasingly specialized relationships that benefit both partners. The butterfly visiting our meadow flower has mouthparts precisely adapted to reach the nectar hidden within that particular blossom shape, while the flower has evolved colors, scents, and timing that attract its most effective pollinators. This co-evolutionary dance creates remarkable examples of ecological balance through mutual dependence. Many orchid species have evolved such specific relationships with their pollinators that each depends entirely on the other for reproduction. The Madagascar star orchid, with its foot-long nectar spur, can only be pollinated by a single species of hawk moth with a proboscis of matching length. Neither species could survive without the other, creating a biological partnership that has persisted for millions of years. The timing of these relationships demonstrates another dimension of ecological balance. Many flowering plants synchronize their blooming with the life cycles of their primary pollinators, ensuring that flowers are available when insects need nectar and that pollinators are active when plants require their services. This temporal coordination requires precise responses to environmental cues such as temperature, day length, and seasonal weather patterns. Disruptions to these carefully timed relationships reveal the delicate nature of ecological balance. Climate change has begun to shift the timing of both plant flowering and insect emergence, sometimes creating mismatches that threaten both partners. When flowers bloom before their pollinators emerge, or when insects become active after their preferred flowers have finished blooming, both species suffer reduced reproductive success. Predator prey relationships form another crucial component of ecological balance, with insects playing roles on both sides of these interactions. Predatory insects such as dragonflies, praying mantises, and ground beetles help control populations of herbivorous species, preventing any single group from overwhelming plant communities. These predators must maintain delicate balance themselves, being numerous enough to effectively control their prey while not becoming so abundant that they eliminate their own food sources. The complexity of these predatory relationships creates multiple layers of balance within ecological communities. A single aphid colony might be controlled by ladybird beetles, parasitic wasps, fungal pathogens, and predatory spiders, each responding to aphid abundance through different mechanisms and timescales. This redundancy in natural control mechanisms helps maintain stability even when individual predator species fluctuate in abundance. Parasitic relationships add another dimension to ecological balance, with many insects serving as either parasites or hosts within complex life cycles that span multiple species. Parasitic wasps represent one of the most diverse groups of animals on Earth, with different species specializing on nearly every other insect group. These parasites exert subtle but powerful effects on their host populations, often killing or sterilizing infected individuals, and thereby regulating host abundance. The intricate life cycles of many parasitic insects create temporal networks that connect seemingly unrelated species. A parasitic wasp might spend its larval stage developing within a caterpillar host, emerge as an adult to mate and feed on flower nectar, then seek out new caterpillar hosts to continue the cycle. This complex lifestyle creates dependencies on multiple habitat types and food sources, making parasitic species sensitive indicators of ecosystem health. Decomposer insects play fundamental roles in maintaining ecological balance through nutrient cycling. Carrion beetles, fly larvae, and various other scavenging insects break down dead organic matter, returning nutrients to the soil where they can support new plant growth. Without these decomposers, dead plant and animal material would accumulate, locking up essential nutrients and disrupting the flow of energy through ecosystems. The efficiency of insect decomposers varies with environmental conditions, creating feedback loops that influence entire ecosystem dynamics. In warm, moist conditions, decomposer insects work rapidly, quickly recycling nutrients and supporting vigorous plant growth. In cold or dry environments, decomposition proceeds more slowly, leading to accumulation of organic matter and different patterns of nutrient availability. Forest ecosystems demonstrate particularly complex examples of insect-mediated ecological balance. Different insect species are specialized for decomposing different types of organic matter, from fresh leaves to well-rotted wood. Bark beetles tunnel through dead tree trunks, creating pathways for fungal invasion that accelerates wood decay. Termites break down cellulose-rich plant material, while other insects specialize in processing animal remains or fungal fruiting bodies. The vertical structure of forests creates multiple microhabitats that support distinct insect communities at different heights. Canopy insects rarely interact directly with ground-dwelling species, yet both groups contribute to the overall ecological balance through their specialized roles in nutrient processing, pollination, and population control. This three-dimensional partitioning of ecological roles allows forests to support extraordinary diversity while maintaining stability through functional redundancy. Aquatic insects bridge terrestrial and freshwater ecosystems, often spending parts of their life cycles in both environments. Mayflies, caddisflies, and dragonflies develop as aquatic larvae before emerging as terrestrial adults, transferring nutrients and energy between these two realms. When aquatic insects emerge in large numbers, they provide important food sources for birds, bats, and spiders, creating pulses of energy that ripple through terrestrial food webs. The quality of aquatic habitats directly influences the abundance and diversity of these amphibious insects, which in turn affects the terrestrial communities that depend on them. Stream pollution or habitat degradation can reduce aquatic insect populations, diminishing food availability for terrestrial predators and altering the balance of entire regional ecosystems. Agricultural ecosystems reveal both the importance of insect ecological relationships and the consequences of disrupting natural balance. Traditional farming systems often maintained diverse insect communities that provided natural pest control, pollination services, and soil improvement through decomposition. Modern intensive agriculture has simplified many of these relationships, sometimes creating instabilities that require external inputs to maintain productivity. Beneficial insects in agricultural systems demonstrate the economic value of ecological balance. Natural predators and parasites can control crop pest populations more effectively and sustainably than chemical pesticides, while pollinating insects are essential for the reproduction of many food crops. The collapse of pollinator populations in some regions has highlighted how dependent human food systems are on maintaining healthy insect communities. Habitat corridors and edge effects influence how insects move between different ecosystem types, affecting genetic diversity and population stability. Many insect species require access to multiple habitat types during their life cycles, moving between breeding sites, feeding areas, and overwintering locations. Fragmentation of natural habitats can disrupt these movements, isolating populations and reducing their ability to recover from local disturbances. The study of island biogeography provides insights into how insect communities achieve balance in isolated systems. Oceanic islands often support simplified insect communities compared to continental areas, but these simplified systems can achieve remarkable stability through tight coevolutionary relationships. The absence of certain functional groups, such as large predators or social insects, creates opportunities for other species to expand their ecological roles. Invasive insect species demonstrate how ecological balance can be disrupted when new relationships are introduced to established communities. Without their co-evolved natural enemies, invasive insects often achieve much higher population densities than they reach in their native ranges. These population explosions can overwhelm native species and disrupt established ecological relationships, sometimes leading to cascading effects throughout entire ecosystems. Climate change presents new challenges to ecological balance, as shifting temperatures and precipitation patterns alter the suitability of habitats for different insect species. Some species are expanding their ranges into previously unsuitable areas, while others are retreating toward higher latitudes or elevations. These range shifts create new species interactions while breaking apart ancient ecological relationships. The resilience of ecological balance depends partly on the diversity of relationships within communities. Systems with high functional diversity, where multiple species can perform similar ecological roles, tend to be more stable when faced with disturbances. This redundancy allows communities to maintain essential functions even when individual species are lost or their populations fluctuate dramatically. As the morning mist clears and reveals the full complexity of the meadow ecosystem, we see how the butterfly's visit to a single flower connects to countless other relationships that maintain the balance of this peaceful scene. Each insect going about its daily activities contributes to a vast network of interactions that has sustained life on Earth for hundreds of millions of years. In understanding these connections, we gain appreciation for the profound interdependence that characterizes all living communities, including our own. As autumn's first chill touches the evening air, a profound transformation begins to unfold across the natural world. In countless hidden places, insects are responding to subtle changes in day length and temperature, their internal clocks triggering ancient programs that have ensured survival through millions of seasonal cycles. This is the realm of temporal balance, where the rhythm of individual lives must synchronize with the greater rhythms of Earth itself. The concept of temporal balance in insects encompasses far more than simple responses to weather changes. It involves the precise coordination of entire life cycles with the predictable patterns of seasonal variation that characterize most of Earth's environments. From the Arctic tundra to tropical forests, insects have evolved sophisticated timing mechanisms that allow them to exploit favorable conditions while avoiding or surviving periods of scarcity and harsh weather. Photoperiodism, the response to changing day length, serves as the primary timing mechanism for seasonal behaviors in most insect species. As days grow shorter in autumn, specialized photoreceptors in insect brains detect the diminishing light and trigger cascades of hormonal changes that prepare the organism for winter. This system provides a remarkably reliable calendar, one that remains accurate regardless of temporary weather fluctuations that might mislead other environmental cues. The precision of photoperiodic responses demonstrates the critical importance of timing in insect survival strategies. A difference of just minutes in daily light exposure can determine whether an insect enters dormancy or continues active development. This sensitivity allows insects to fine-tune their seasonal responses to local conditions, with populations at different latitudes often showing distinct photoperiodic thresholds that match their specific climate patterns. Diapause represents one of the most remarkable adaptations for surviving unfavorable seasons. Unlike simple dormancy, which is a direct response to immediate conditions, diapause is a programmed state of suspended development that occurs in anticipation of future environmental stress. Insects entering diapause may cease feeding, reduce their metabolic rate to a fraction of normal levels, and become virtually immune to environmental extremes that would quickly kill active individuals. The timing of diapause entry requires insects to balance current conditions against future prospects, essentially gambling on predictions about seasonal change. Enter diapause too early, and the insect wastes valuable feeding and growing time during favorable weather. Enter too late, and winter may arrive before the physiological changes necessary for survival have been completed. This balance between risk and opportunity shapes the evolution of diapause timing in every species. Different insect species enter diapause at various life stages, each strategy representing a unique solution to the challenges of seasonal survival. Some butterflies overwinter as eggs, their development suspended until spring warmth triggers hatching. Others, like the morning cloak butterfly, survive winter as adults, seeking shelter in tree hollows or under loose bark, where they remain motionless for months before emerging to breed in early spring. The physiological changes that accompany diapause entry reveal the sophisticated biochemical machinery that enables temporal balance. Insects preparing for winter dormancy often accumulate large quantities of antifreeze compounds, such as glycerol or ethylene glycol, that prevent ice crystal formation within their cells. These cryoprotectants allow some insects to survive freezing solid, their life processes suspended but intact until warmer temperatures return. Water balance during diapause presents particular challenges, as inactive insects cannot actively seek moisture but must avoid both desiccation and the damaging effects of ice formation. Many species select overwintering sites that provide stable humidity conditions, such as deep soil layers or protected cavities within vegetation. Others have evolved water impermeable coverings that minimize moisture loss during extended dormancy periods. Migration represents an alternative strategy for achieving temporal balance, allowing insects to track favorable conditions across vast distances rather than enduring harsh seasons in place. The monarch butterfly migration stands as perhaps the most spectacular example of this approach, with individuals traveling thousands of miles to reach overwintering sites in central Mexico. This journey requires multiple generations to complete, with spring migrants heading north, stopping to breed along the way while their offspring continue the journey. The navigation abilities required for successful migration reveal another dimension of temporal balance. Migrating insects must integrate information about time of day, season, and geographic location to maintain proper heading across landscapes that offer few reliable landmarks. Many species use the sun as a compass, compensating for its apparent movement across the sky through internal timekeeping mechanisms that track the passage of hours. Seasonal synchronization of reproduction demonstrates how temporal balance extends beyond individual survival to encompass the continuation of species. Many insects time their breeding cycles to ensure that offspring emerge when food resources are most abundant and environmental conditions are most favorable for development. This timing often requires adults to withhold reproduction for extended periods, balancing their own immediate reproductive potential against the survival prospects of their offspring. The emergence of periodic cicadas exemplifies extreme temporal coordination, with entire populations remaining underground for either 13 or 17 years before emerging simultaneously to breed. This remarkable synchronization serves multiple functions, overwhelming predators with sheer numbers, while ensuring that all individuals have access to mates during their brief adult lifespan. The prime number emergence cycles may have evolved to avoid synchronizing with predator or parasite populations that might otherwise time their own reproduction to exploit cicada emergences. Seasonal changes in insect community composition create temporal mosaics of species activity throughout the year. Spring brings early emerging species adapted to cool temperatures and sparse vegetation, followed by waves of species active during summer's peak abundance, and finally by autumn specialists that exploit the resources of senescent plants and fallen leaves. This temporal partitioning reduces competition while maximizing utilization of seasonal resources. The study of insect phenology, the timing of life cycle events, has revealed how climate change is beginning to disrupt established patterns of temporal balance. Rising temperatures are causing many species to emerge earlier in spring, sometimes creating mismatches with their food sources or throwing off predator prey relationships that have been synchronized for millions of years. These phenological shifts represent one of the most immediate and visible impacts of global environmental change. Alpine and Arctic insects face particularly extreme challenges in achieving temporal balance, with growing seasons that may last only a few weeks and winter conditions that persist for most of the year. Many high latitude species have evolved extended development periods, requiring multiple years to complete life cycles that related species in warmer climates finish in a single season. This life history strategy trades rapid reproduction for resilience to unpredictable weather and short growing seasons. Tropical insects, despite living in relatively stable climates, also demonstrate sophisticated temporal adaptations. Dry season dormancy allows species to survive periods when food plants become scarce or unsuitable. Some tropical species time their reproduction to coincide with particular weather patterns, such as the onset of monsoon rains that trigger plant growth and increase food availability. The coordination between predators and prey creates additional layers of temporal balance within insect communities. Many predatory insects time their own reproduction to coincide with peak abundance of their prey species, while prey species may evolve to reproduce when predator pressure is lowest. These temporal arms races create complex dynamics where the timing of one species influences the optimal timing for many others. Artificial lighting has begun to disrupt the photoperiodic cues that many insects rely on for seasonal timing. Streetlights and other sources of nighttime illumination can confuse insects about day length, potentially preventing them from entering diapause at appropriate times or triggering premature emergence from winter dormancy. These disruptions highlight the delicate nature of temporal balance and the potential consequences of environmental change. The molecular mechanisms underlying seasonal timing involve complex interactions between circadian clocks and longer-term timing systems. Clock genes that regulate daily rhythms also influence seasonal responses, creating hierarchical timing systems that coordinate behaviors across multiple timescales. Recent research has revealed how changes in gene expression patterns allow the same neural circuits to produce different behaviors at different times of year. Temperature compensation ensures that timing mechanisms remain accurate across the range of temperatures that insects experience in their natural environments. The molecular clocks that control seasonal responses maintain consistent timing despite fluctuations in ambient temperature and clock, preventing warm spells from triggering inappropriate responses or cold snaps from disrupting essential timing functions. As we observe the subtle signs of seasonal change around us, from the altered angle of sunlight to the gradual shift in which flowers are blooming, we witness the same environmental cues that guide insect temporal balance. In their precise responses to these seasonal signals, insects demonstrate that survival often depends not just on what we do, but when we do it. The temporal dimension of balance reminds us that all life exists within the context of time, with success measured not in moments, but across the full cycle of seasons and years. The moths that will emerge only briefly in late autumn, the beetles already preparing for winter dormancy, and the butterfly eggs that will wait through winter for spring's return all embody the patient wisdom of temporal balance, teaching us that sometimes the most important action is knowing when to wait. In the depths of a summer afternoon, when the sun beats down mercilessly and the air shimmers with heat, a small ground beetle seeks refuge beneath a fallen leaf. Its body temperature has risen dangerously close to lethal levels, yet within moments of finding shade, a cascade of physiological responses begins to restore the delicate internal balance that keeps this tiny creature alive. This is the realm of homeostasis, where insects demonstrate their remarkable ability to maintain internal stability despite the constant challenges of an ever-changing world. The maintenance of internal balance requires insects to function as sophisticated regulatory systems, constantly monitoring their internal conditions and making adjustments to counteract potentially harmful changes. Like a thermostat maintaining room temperature or a pilot keeping an aircraft on course, insect homeostatic mechanisms detect deviations from optimal conditions and initiate corrective responses that restore equilibrium. Temperature regulation presents one of the most immediate challenges for insect homeostasis. As ectothermic creatures, insects cannot generate substantial amounts of metabolic heat to warm themselves, yet they must prevent their body temperature from reaching extremes that would damage cellular machinery or disrupt essential physiological processes. Their solutions to this challenge reveal ingenious strategies for maintaining thermal balance through behavioral and physiological means. Behavioral thermoregulation represents the first line of defense against temperature stress. The beetle seeking shade demonstrates one of the simplest yet most effective strategies for avoiding overheating. By moving to cooler microenvironments, insects can maintain body temperatures within tolerable ranges, even when ambient conditions become extreme. This behavioral flexibility allows them to exploit thermal refugia that might exist only centimeters away from lethal conditions. The complexity of behavioral thermoregulation becomes apparent when we observe insects fine-tuning their position and posture to optimize heat exchange with their environment. Butterflies basking in morning sunlight orient their wings perpendicular to the sun's rays to maximize heat absorption, then gradually adjust their angle as temperatures rise to prevent overheating. Some species can regulate their body temperature within a degree or two simply through precise control of their orientation relative to solar radiation. Social insects demonstrate collective thermoregulation strategies that maintain optimal conditions for entire colonies. Honeybee workers use their wings as fans to create air currents that cool the hive during hot weather, while clustering together and vibrating their flight muscles to generate heat when temperatures drop. The precision of these collective responses allows bee colonies to maintain brood comb temperatures within narrow ranges despite wide fluctuations in external conditions. Water balance presents another critical aspect of insect homeostasis, particularly for terrestrial species that must prevent desiccation while maintaining adequate hydration for cellular functions. The waxy cuticle that covers insect bodies serves as the primary barrier against water loss, with its permeability carefully regulated to balance protection against desiccation with the need for gas exchange and sensory function. Desert insects have evolved particularly sophisticated water conservation strategies that allow them to survive in some of Earth's most arid environments. The Namib desert beetle collects water from fog by positioning itself on dune crests where water droplets condense on its specially textured wing covers. Hydrophilic regions on the beetle's surface attract water, while hydrophobic areas channel the collected moisture toward the beetle's mouth, allowing it to drink from the air itself. Metabolic depression serves as a powerful tool for maintaining homeostasis during periods of environmental stress. When faced with extreme temperatures, drought, or food scarcity, many insects can dramatically reduce their metabolic rate, entering states of dormancy that allow them to survive conditions that would quickly kill active individuals. This metabolic flexibility provides a crucial buffer against environmental variability. The physiological mechanisms underlying metabolic depression involve coordinated changes in enzyme activity, membrane permeability, and cellular metabolism. During stress-induced dormancy, insects may reduce their oxygen consumption to less than 5% of normal levels while maintaining just enough cellular activity to preserve vital functions. This remarkable downregulation of metabolism can extend survival times from days to months or even years. Osmotic regulation ensures that insects maintain proper water and salt balance despite variations in their diet and environment. Specialized organs such as Malpighian tubules function as both kidneys and liver, filtering waste products from the blood while carefully controlling the loss of essential salts and water. The efficiency of these excretory systems allows insects to process nitrogen waste while conserving precious water resources. Acid-base balance requires careful regulation of internal pH to maintain optimal conditions for enzyme function and cellular metabolism. Insects accomplish this through buffer systems in their blood and specialized organs that can eliminate excess acids or bases. The carbonic acid bicarbonate system that helps maintain blood pH in insects operates on principles similar to those found in vertebrates, demonstrating convergent evolution towards similar solutions for fundamental physiological challenges. Immune responses represent another dimension of homeostatic regulation, maintaining internal balance by defending against pathogens and parasites that could disrupt normal physiological functions. Insect immune systems lack the adaptive antibody responses found in vertebrates, but compensate through highly effective innate immunity mechanisms that can rapidly respond to diverse threats. The insect immune system includes both cellular and humoral components that work together to eliminate invading organisms. Specialized blood cells called hemocytes can engulf and destroy bacteria, while antimicrobial peptides produced in response to infection can kill or inhibit a wide range of pathogens. These defensive mechanisms must be carefully regulated to eliminate threats without causing excessive damage to the insect's own tissues. Wound healing demonstrates the coordinated homeostatic responses that restore tissue integrity after injury. When an insect is wounded, blood clotting mechanisms quickly seal damaged areas to prevent further fluid loss, while cellular repair processes begin regenerating damaged tissues. Some insects can regenerate lost appendages through carefully controlled regrowth processes that restore both structure and function. Oxidative stress management protects insects from the damaging effects of reactive oxygen species that accumulate during normal metabolism and increase during environmental stress. Antioxidant systems, including specialized enzymes and protective molecules, neutralize these harmful compounds before they can damage cellular components. The balance between oxidative damage and antioxidant protection influences aging processes and stress tolerance. Hormonal regulation coordinates homeostatic responses across different organ systems, ensuring that adjustments in one physiological process are properly integrated with changes in others. Stress hormones, such as octopamine, can simultaneously adjust heart rate, metabolism, and behavioral responses, creating coordinated responses that optimize survival during challenging conditions. The circadian regulation of homeostatic mechanisms ensures that physiological processes are properly timed to anticipate daily changes in environmental conditions. Many homeostatic functions show daily rhythms that prepare the insect for predictable challenges such as temperature fluctuations or changes in humidity that occur with day-night cycles. Nutritional homeostasis involves balancing energy intake with expenditure while maintaining adequate reserves for growth, reproduction, and survival. Insects must carefully regulate their feeding behavior to obtain sufficient nutrients without exposing themselves to excessive predation risk or expending too much energy in foraging activities. Developmental homeostasis ensures that growth and maturation proceed normally despite environmental variability that might otherwise disrupt these processes. Insects can adjust their developmental rate in response to temperature changes or modify their growth patterns when nutrition is limited, maintaining the essential coordination between different body systems even under suboptimal conditions. The integration of multiple homeostatic systems creates emergent properties that enhance overall survival capability. Insects facing multiple stresses simultaneously can prioritize different regulatory responses, shutting down less essential functions to maintain critical processes. This hierarchical regulation allows insects to survive combinations of stresses that might overwhelm less integrated systems. Phenotypic plasticity allows insects to adjust their homeostatic set points based on environmental conditions they experience during development. Insects developing in stressful environments often show enhanced stress tolerance as adults, demonstrating how early experiences can calibrate homeostatic systems for the conditions they are likely to encounter throughout life. The study of insect homeostasis has provided insights into fundamental principles of biological regulation that apply across diverse life forms. The feedback control systems, redundant protective mechanisms, and integrated responses found in insects represent solutions to universal challenges faced by all living organisms in maintaining internal stability. As evening approaches and temperatures begin to moderate, our ground beetle emerges from its leafy shelter, its internal regulatory systems having successfully maintained vital functions through another day of environmental challenge. In its quiet persistence and adaptive responses, this small creature embodies the remarkable resilience that emerges from well-balanced homeostatic systems, reminding us that stability often arises not from avoiding challenges, but from developing the capacity to respond effectively to whatever conditions arise. In the soft golden light of late afternoon, a worker honeybee returns to her hive with a full cargo of nectar, her flight muscles having burned precious fuel to transport this liquid energy back to the colony. As she transfers her load to waiting house bees, she embodies one of nature's most fundamental challenges, the careful management of energy resources that sustains all life. For insects, energy balance represents a constant optimization problem where every decision about foraging, growth, and reproduction must be weighed against finite metabolic reserves. Energy flows through insect lives, like water through a complex irrigation system, with inputs carefully matched to outputs and reserves strategically allocated to ensure survival through periods of scarcity. Unlike larger animals that can afford some inefficiency in their energy budgets, insects operate with such narrow metabolic margins that even small miscalculations can prove fatal. This constraint has driven the evolution of remarkably sophisticated energy management strategies that maximize survival and reproductive success. The acquisition of energy begins with foraging decisions that must balance potential rewards against the costs and risks of obtaining them. A butterfly visiting flowers must evaluate not only the quality and quantity of nectar available, but also the energy required to reach each flower, the time spent exposed to predators, and the opportunity costs of not visiting alternative food sources. These calculations occur largely through evolved behavioral patterns that have been optimized over countless generations. Foraging efficiency varies dramatically with environmental conditions and individual characteristics. Young insects often forage less efficiently than experienced individuals, spending more energy for smaller rewards as they learn to identify the best food sources and develop effective search strategies. Environmental factors such as wind speed, temperature, and flower density all influence the energetic profitability of foraging trips, requiring insects to continuously adjust their behavior to maintain positive energy budgets. The processing and storage of acquired energy reveals sophisticated biochemical machinery that maximizes the value of consumed resources. Insect digestive systems are remarkably efficient, often extracting more than 80% of available energy from food items. Specialized enzymes break down complex carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids into forms that can be readily absorbed and utilized by the insect's tissues. Energy storage strategies reflect the different challenges faced by insects with varying life histories and ecological niches. Species that undergo extended periods without feeding, such as overwintering adults or pupating larvae, must accumulate substantial energy reserves in the form of lipids and glycogen. These storage compounds provide both concentrated energy and the raw materials needed for tissue construction during periods of rapid growth or metamorphosis. The allocation of energy between competing demands represents one of the most critical aspects of insect energy management. Growing insects must divide available resources between immediate survival needs, continued growth, and preparation for reproduction. This allocation process involves complex trade offs that can have lasting consequences for individual fitness and survival prospects. Metabolic scaling creates different energy challenges for insects of various sizes. Smaller insects have higher mass-specific metabolic rates, meaning they must process more energy per unit body weight to maintain their basic physiological functions. This scaling relationship explains why tiny insects like fairy flies must feed almost continuously, while larger insects like beetles can survive for extended periods between meals. Temperature profoundly influences insect energy budgets through its effects on metabolic rate and activity levels. Cold temperatures reduce metabolic demands, but also limit the insect's ability to forage and process food. Warm temperatures accelerate metabolism and enable more vigorous activity, but also increase energy demands and the risk of overheating. Insects must constantly balance these thermal effects to optimize their energy utilization. Flight represents one of the most energetically expensive activities in the insect world, with some species burning energy at rates comparable to hummingbirds during sustained flight. The metabolic demands of flight have driven remarkable adaptations in fuel storage and utilization including the ability to rapidly convert stored lipids into flight-ready energy and sophisticated mechanisms for maintaining optimal flight muscle temperature. Migratory insects face particularly extreme energy management challenges, needing to accumulate sufficient fuel reserves to power journeys of thousands of miles while maintaining enough energy for survival and reproduction at their destination. Monarch butterflies increase their lipid stores by more than 100% before beginning their southward migration, transforming their body composition to become living fuel tanks capable of non-stop flight across vast distances. Social insects demonstrate collective energy management strategies that optimize resource utilization at the colony level. Worker ants adjust their foraging intensity based on colony energy stores, reducing costly foraging activities when reserves are high and intensifying efforts when supplies run low. This collective decision making allows colonies to buffer against environmental variability while minimizing unnecessary energy expenditure. The division of labor within social insect colonies creates specialized energy management roles that enhance overall efficiency. Some workers specialize in collecting high energy foods like nectar and honeydew, while others focus on protein sources needed for brood development. This specialization allows colonies to exploit diverse food sources while minimizing the energy costs associated with switching between different foraging strategies. Reproductive energy allocation reveals some of the most dramatic trade-offs in insect energy budgets. Females of many species must choose between investing energy in current reproduction or reserving resources for future reproductive opportunities. This allocation decision can dramatically influence reproductive success, with implications that extend across multiple generations. Egg production represents a massive energy investment for female insects, often requiring resources equivalent to a significant fraction of the female's total body weight. Some insects produce eggs that are nearly half lipid by weight, representing concentrated energy packages that fuel embryonic development. The timing and magnitude of these reproductive investments must be carefully coordinated with resource availability and environmental conditions. Male insects face different energy allocation challenges, often investing heavily in traits that enhance mating success rather than direct reproductive output. The elaborate antlers of some beetles, the bright colors of many butterflies, and the complex courtship behaviors of various species all require substantial energy investments that must be balanced against survival needs. Juvenile development presents unique energy management challenges, as growing insects must fuel both maintenance metabolism and the construction of new tissues. The efficiency of growth processes can dramatically influence development time and ultimate adult size, with implications for competitive ability and reproductive success. Metamorphosis represents perhaps the most dramatic example of energy allocation in the insect world, as pupating larvae essentially dissolve their larval tissues and reconstruct themselves into entirely different adult forms. This remarkable transformation requires careful coordination of energy, mobilization, and utilization, with the insect living entirely off stored reserves while rebuilding its body from the inside out. Starvation responses reveal the sophisticated regulatory mechanisms that insects use to manage energy crises. When faced with food shortages, insects can dramatically reduce their metabolic rate, cannibalize non-essential tissues, and prioritize the protection of vital organs. These emergency responses can extend survival time substantially, but often come at the cost of reduced reproductive capacity or competitive ability. Seasonal energy cycles coordinate resource allocation with predictable environmental changes, allowing insects to prepare for periods of scarcity or high energy demand. Many temperate insects accumulate energy reserves during autumn to fuel overwintering survival, while others time their reproduction to coincide with periods of peak resource availability. The energetic costs of immune function create additional trade offs in insect energy budgets. Mounting immune responses against pathogens or parasites requires substantial energy investment, potentially reducing resources available for growth, reproduction, or other fitness enhancing activities. This constraint helps explain why insects often show reduced immune function during periods of energy stress. Foraging group dynamics in social species create opportunities for collective energy optimization that exceed what individual insects could achieve alone. Ant colonies can maintain multiple foraging trails simultaneously, comparing the profitability of different food sources and rapidly shifting effort toward the most rewarding options. This parallel processing of foraging information enhances overall energy acquisition efficiency. Energy storage adaptations show remarkable diversity across insect groups, reflecting different evolutionary solutions to the challenge of resource management. Some insects store energy primarily as lipids, which provide more than twice the energy density of carbohydrates, but require more complex metabolic machinery for mobilization. Others rely mainly on carbohydrate stores that can be rapidly accessed but provide less total energy per unit weight. The evolution of energy management strategies reflects the fundamental constraints and opportunities that have shaped insect diversity over hundreds of millions of years. Species facing predictable resource availability have evolved different strategies than those dealing with highly variable environments, creating the remarkable diversity of energy management approaches we observe in modern insect communities. As twilight approaches and our returning honeybee settles into the hive for the night, her day's work represents just one thread in the vast tapestry of energy flows that sustain insect communities worldwide. In her efficient collection and storage of nectar, she demonstrates the careful energy management that enables these small creatures to thrive in environments ranging from deserts to rainforests, from Arctic tundra to urban gardens. Her success reminds us that prosperity often comes not from abundance, but from the wisdom to use resources carefully and well. In the hushed moments before sunrise, when dew still clings to spider webs and the air holds the coolness of night, a small leaf beetle begins its careful descent from the oak canopy where it has spent the darkness. Its destination is not random, but reflects a precise calculation of environmental conditions, food availability, and safety factors that will determine its survival through another day. This daily migration between microhabitats demonstrates how insects actively shape their world by choosing where to live, feed, and shelter. Habitat selection represents one of the most fundamental decisions that insects make, influencing every aspect of their biology from survival and growth to reproduction and evolutionary success. Unlike passive organisms that must endure whatever conditions they encounter, insects actively evaluate their environment and move toward locations that best meet their specific physiological and ecological requirements. This behavioral flexibility allows them to create optimal living conditions even within highly variable landscapes. The concept of microenvironments reveals how insects experience their world at spatial scales that are often invisible to human observers. A single fallen log may contain dozens of distinct microhabitats, each characterized by different temperature, humidity, light levels, and resource availability. The upper surface bakes in direct sunlight, creating hot, dry conditions that few insects can tolerate. The shadowed undersides remain cool and moist, providing refuge for species adapted to more stable conditions. The decaying interior offers yet another environment, rich in nutrients but low in oxygen. Temperature gradients within microenvironments can span ranges that would require traveling hundreds of miles to encounter at the landscape scale. A sun-facing rock surface may reach temperatures exceeding 50 degrees Celsius, while a shaded crevice only centimeters away remains below 20 degrees Celsius. Insects exploit these thermal mosaics by moving short distances to find optimal body temperatures for different activities, essentially thermoregulating through habitat choice rather than physiological adjustment. Humidity variations create equally dramatic environmental contrasts over tiny distances. The space beneath a single leaf may maintain near saturated humidity, while the exposed surface above experiences rapid moisture loss to moving air. Insects sensitive to desiccation seek out these humid refugia, sometimes modifying them further by constructing shelters or selecting locations where their own behavior can enhance moisture retention. Soil-dwelling insects demonstrate remarkable sophistication in microhabitat selection, moving vertically through soil layers to find optimal conditions as surface conditions change throughout the day and seasons. Ground-dwelling beetles may spend daylight hours deep in soil, where temperatures remain stable and humidity levels are high, then emerge to the surface during cooler nighttime hours when foraging conditions are more favorable. The construction of shelters represents active habitat modification that allows insects to create customized microenvironments that exceed what is naturally available. Leaf-rolling caterpillars fold plant tissues to create protected feeding chambers that provide both food and shelter while concealing them from predators. These living shelters grow as the caterpillar feeds, continuously providing an expanding environment that meets the insect's changing needs. Web-spinning insects create some of the most sophisticated engineered microenvironments in the natural world. Spider webs function not only as prey capture devices, but also as precisely tuned environmental control systems. The three-dimensional structure of many webs creates air circulation patterns that help regulate temperature and humidity around the spider. Some web builders even incorporate materials that reflect ultraviolet light, creating visual refugia that are invisible to many predators. Social insects construct elaborate environmental control systems that maintain optimal conditions for entire colonies. Termite mounds function as sophisticated climate control systems, with networks of tunnels and chambers that create air currents, maintaining stable temperature and humidity throughout the structure. Some species cultivate fungus gardens within specialized chambers where temperature and moisture are regulated with precision that rivals modern greenhouse technology. Ant colonies demonstrate collective habitat modification on scales that can dramatically alter local environments. Leafcutter ants create underground gardens where they cultivate the fungi that serve as their primary food source. These subterranean farms require careful environmental control, with workers continuously adjusting ventilation, moisture levels, and waste removal to maintain optimal growing conditions for their crops. Aquatic insects face unique challenges in habitat selection as they must balance conflicting requirements for dissolved oxygen temperature, water flow, and protection from predators. Mayfly nymphs select microhabitats within streams based on subtle differences in current velocity and substrate composition, with different species adapted to exploit specific combinations of these factors. The resulting spatial segregation allows multiple species to coexist within the same stream reach by utilizing different microenvironmental niches. Vertical stratification in forest environments creates tower-like arrays of microhabitats that insects can exploit through habitat selection and modification. Canopy insects live in an aerial environment characterized by high light levels, temperature extremes, and abundant food resources, but limited shelter options. Many species create their own microclimates by constructing silk shelters, selecting specific leaf positions, or timing their activities to avoid thermal extremes. Understory habitats provide more stable conditions but present different challenges related to limited food resources and reduced air circulation. Insects in these environments often show behavioral adaptations that help them exploit the specific conditions of their chosen microhabitats, such as enhanced ability to detect weak chemical signals in still air or adaptations for feeding on the specialized plant resources available in low light environments. Edge effects create transitional zones between different habitat types that often support unique insect communities adapted to the specific environmental conditions found at these boundaries. Forest edges experience greater temperature fluctuations and wind exposure than forest interiors, but also receive more direct sunlight and support different plant communities. Some insects specialize in exploiting these edge environments, moving back and forth between adjacent habitats to optimize their access to resources. Temporal patterns in habitat use reveal how insects dynamically adjust their microenvironment selection throughout daily and seasonal cycles. Many species show distinct patterns of vertical migration, moving between different habitat layers as environmental conditions change. Bark beetles may feed deep within tree trunks during hot daytime hours, then emerge to the surface during cooler periods to engage in dispersal and mating activities. The role of chemical cues in habitat selection demonstrates how insects use sophisticated sensory abilities to evaluate environmental quality. Many species can detect subtle chemical signatures that indicate the presence of food resources, suitable mates, or potential dangers. These chemical landscapes provide information that helps insects make informed decisions about where to establish territories, construct shelters, or lay eggs. Host plant selection by herbivorous insects reveals complex decision-making processes that integrate multiple environmental factors. A female butterfly choosing where to lay her eggs must evaluate not only the nutritional quality of potential host plants, but also their microenvironmental characteristics, defensive chemistry, and the likely survival prospects of offspring developing in different locations. Predator avoidance influences habitat selection through the creation of landscapes of fear, where the perceived risk of predation varies spatially. Insects may avoid otherwise suitable habitats if they are associated with high predation risk, or they may modify their behavior within these habitats to reduce their vulnerability. This spatial variation in predation risk creates opportunities for prey species to trade off access to resources against safety considerations. Parasitoid pressure creates additional layers of habitat selection complexity, as insects must consider not only the risk of direct predation, but also the likelihood of encountering specialized parasites in different microenvironments. Some insects show remarkable ability to assess parasitoid risk and adjust their habitat use accordingly, suggesting sophisticated risk assessment capabilities. Microclimate modification through group behavior demonstrates how individual habitat selection decisions can collectively create environmental changes that benefit entire communities. Aggregating insects can modify local temperature and humidity conditions through their combined metabolic activity and water loss, creating beneficial microclimates that would not exist around isolated individuals. Competition for high quality microhabitats can lead to territorial behavior and social hierarchies that determine access to the best environmental conditions. Dominant individuals may monopolize optimal microsites, while subordinates are forced to accept suboptimal conditions. This competitive dynamic can drive habitat segregation and influence the evolution of traits related to competitive ability. The study of habitat selection has revealed general principles about how organisms interact with their environment that extend far beyond insect ecology. The concept that animals actively choose their environment rather than passively accepting it has influenced understanding of evolutionary processes, conservation biology, and ecosystem management across diverse scientific disciplines. Climate change is beginning to alter the availability and quality of microhabitats that insects depend on, creating new challenges for species that have evolved specific habitat requirements. As temperature and precipitation patterns shift, the spatial arrangement of suitable microenvironments may change faster than insects can adapt, potentially leading to local extinctions and community reorganization. As dawn breaks and illuminates the complex three-dimensional mosaic of microhabitats surrounding us, we witness the quiet intelligence with which insects navigate their environmental choices. The leaf beetle, completing its morning descent, has not simply moved from tree to ground, but has traveled between distinct worlds, each offering different opportunities and challenges. In its careful habitat selection, this small creature demonstrates that where we choose to live can be just as important as how we choose to live, reminding us that our environment shapes us even as we shape our environment. In the quiet meadow, where morning light filters through grass stems, countless aphids cluster on the tender shoots of young plants, their populations having exploded overnight from just a few founding individuals. Yet, within this apparent abundance lies a delicate balance of forces that will soon reshape their community. As predators arrive, resources become scarce, and the very success of their reproduction begins to work against them. This is the realm of population dynamics, where the numbers of individuals rise and fall according to ancient rhythms that maintain the long-term stability of ecological communities. Population dynamics encompasses the study of how populations change in size over time and the factors that drive these fluctuations. For insects, whose reproductive potential often exceeds that of any other animal group, understanding these regulatory mechanisms becomes crucial for comprehending how ecological balance is maintained despite their extraordinary capacity for multiplication. A single aphid female can theoretically produce billions of descendants in a single season, yet aphid populations do not overrun the world because of the intricate web of regulatory forces that keep their numbers in check. Exponential growth represents the theoretical maximum rate at which populations can increase when resources are unlimited and environmental resistance is absent. Under these ideal conditions, populations grow according to their intrinsic rate of increase, with each generation producing more offspring than the previous one. Insects, with their short generation times and high reproductive output can demonstrate exponential growth rates that seem almost miraculous when first observed. The reality of exponential growth becomes apparent when we examine how quickly insect populations can expand under favorable conditions. A pair of fruit flies placed in a laboratory environment with abundant food can produce thousands of descendants within just a few weeks. This reproductive potential explains how insect pest species can rapidly colonize new agricultural areas, or how beneficial insects can quickly respond to increases in their preferred prey species. However, truly exponential growth rarely persists for long in natural environments because it inevitably encounters environmental resistance. As populations grow, they begin to experience limitations imposed by finite resources, increased competition, higher predation pressure, and greater susceptibility to disease. These factors create negative feedback loops that slow population growth and eventually stabilize numbers around some equilibrium level. Carrying capacity represents the maximum population size that an environment can sustainably support given the available resources and environmental constraints. For herbivorous insects, carrying capacity might be determined by the amount of suitable plant material available for consumption. For predatory species, it could be limited by the abundance of prey organisms. The carrying capacity concept helps explain why populations cannot grow indefinitely, but instead tend to fluctuate around relatively stable levels. Density-dependent factors create regulatory mechanisms that become stronger as population density increases, providing automatic controls that prevent populations from exceeding their environment's carrying capacity. Competition for food resources intensifies as more individuals attempt to exploit the same limited supplies. Territorial behavior may limit access to optimal breeding sites, forcing some individuals to accept suboptimal conditions or preventing them from reproducing entirely. Disease transmission provides one of the most powerful density-dependent regulatory mechanisms affecting insect populations. As population density increases, pathogens can spread more rapidly through populations, creating epidemic conditions that can dramatically reduce numbers. Viral, bacterial, and fungal diseases often show threshold effects, where transmission becomes much more efficient once population density exceeds critical levels. Predation pressure often increases with prey density as predators are attracted to areas with abundant food sources and may increase their own reproduction in response to plentiful prey. This creates time-delayed feedback loops where high prey populations lead to increased predator numbers, which then reduce prey populations, eventually leading to predator population declines that allow prey numbers to recover. Cannibalism represents an extreme form of density-dependent regulation that occurs in many insect species when population density becomes very high. Larger individuals may consume smaller ones of their own species, effectively reducing population density while providing nutrition for the survivors. This behavior appears particularly common in predatory insects and in species that aggregate in confined spaces during development. Density-independent factors affect populations regardless of their size or density, creating environmental variation that can dramatically influence population dynamics. Weather events such as droughts, floods, or unseasonable temperature extremes can kill large numbers of individuals, regardless of how abundant or rare they might be. These stochastic events add unpredictability to population dynamics and prevent populations from reaching simple equilibrium states. Immigration and immigration create spatial dynamics that influence local population sizes through the movement of individuals between different habitat patches. Young adults dispersing from their natal sites may colonize new areas while also reducing density in their place of origin. This spatial component of population dynamics becomes increasingly important as habitat fragmentation creates landscapes where populations exist as networks of interconnected subpopulations. Metapopulation dynamics describe how networks of local populations connected by dispersal can persist even when individual populations frequently go extinct. In this framework, regional population stability emerges from the balance between local extinctions and recolonization events, creating a dynamic equilibrium that maintains species presence across landscapes despite local instabilities. Age structure influences population dynamics through its effects on reproductive potential and survival patterns. Populations dominated by young, pre reproductive individuals will behave differently than those composed mainly of older, reproductive adults. The timing of reproduction relative to environmental conditions can create cohort effects where individuals born in different years experience vastly different survival and reproductive success. Generation overlap creates additional complexity in population dynamics when individuals from multiple generations coexist and potentially compete with each other. Species with overlapping generations may show more stable population dynamics than those where all reproduction occurs within discrete, non overlapping generations. Because age structure diversity can buffer against environmental variation, reproductive strategies influence how populations respond to environmental change and density variation. Species that reproduce early and often row-selected strategies tend to show more volatile population dynamics with rapid responses to favorable conditions, but also greater susceptibility to environmental downturns. Species that delay reproduction and invest heavily in offspring survival, case-selected strategies, typically show more stable population dynamics. Life table analysis provides quantitative tools for understanding how survival and reproduction at different ages contribute to overall population growth rates. By tracking cohorts of individuals through their complete life cycles, researchers can identify the life stages that most strongly influence population dynamics and predict how environmental changes might affect population trajectories. Population cycles represent one of the most fascinating aspects of insect population dynamics, with some species showing regular fluctuations in abundance over periods of several years. These cycles may result from predator-prey interactions, host pathogen dynamics, or complex interactions between density-dependent and density-independent factors that create oscillating population trajectories. Outbreak dynamics occur when populations escape normal regulatory mechanisms and increase to levels far above typical carrying capacity. Insect pest outbreaks in agricultural and forest systems demonstrate how environmental changes or human interventions can disrupt normal population regulation and lead to explosive population growth that causes significant ecological and condition economic damage. Spatial synchrony describes the tendency for populations in different locations to fluctuate in coordination with each other, often as a result of regional environmental factors or dispersal connections between populations. Understanding spatial synchrony helps predict how local population events might spread across larger geographic areas and influences conservation strategies for managing threatened species. Environmental stochasticity adds random variation to population dynamics through unpredictable environmental events that affect survival and reproduction. This randomness means that population trajectories cannot be predicted with complete certainty, even when the underlying regulatory mechanisms are well understood. Stochastic variation becomes particularly important for small populations that are more vulnerable to random extinction events. Demographic stochasticity arises from random variation in individual survival and reproduction that becomes more important as population size decreases. In very small populations, chance events affecting individual reproduction or survival can have disproportionate effects on population growth rates, creating additional extinction risks beyond those imposed by environmental factors. The study of population dynamics has practical applications for pest management, conservation biology, and ecosystem restoration. Understanding the factors that regulate pest populations helps develop integrated management strategies that work with natural regulatory mechanisms rather than against them. For threatened species, population dynamic models help identify the factors most limiting to population growth and recovery. Climate change is beginning to alter the environmental factors that regulate insect population dynamics, potentially disrupting long established patterns of abundance and creating new challenges for both pest management and conservation. Changing temperature and precipitation patterns may shift the balance between density dependent and density independent regulatory factors, leading to novel population dynamics that are difficult to predict from historical patterns. As the morning progresses and our meadow aphids continue their quiet multiplication, we witness population dynamics in action, knowing that forces are already gathering that will soon bring their exponential growth to an end. In the endless rise and fall of insect numbers, we see reflected the fundamental principles that govern all populations, including our own, reminding us that true stability often emerges not from constancy, but from the dynamic balance of opposing forces that maintain life's equilibrium across the changing seasons of existence. Deep in the amber resin of an ancient forest, a perfectly preserved fly rests in eternal stillness, its delicate wings and compound eyes frozen in time for over 100 million years. This tiny traveler from the Cretaceous period looks remarkably similar to flies we might encounter today, yet it represents just one frame in the vast motion picture of evolutionary change that has shaped insect balance across geological time. In the patient accumulation of countless small modifications, we discover how the balance we observe in modern insects emerged through the slow but relentless process of adaptation. Evolution operates as the ultimate balance-seeking mechanism, continuously adjusting populations and species to match the ever-changing challenges of their environment. Unlike the rapid homeostatic responses that maintain individual balance, or the population dynamics that stabilize communities over years or decades, evolutionary balance unfolds across millions of years, creating the fundamental body plans, physiological systems, and behavioral patterns that define insect success. The extraordinary diversity of insect forms reflects the myriad solutions that evolution has discovered for the basic challenges of staying balanced in a complex world. From the streamlined bodies of aquatic diving beetles to the elaborate wing patterns of tropical butterflies, each species represents a unique experiment in biological engineering, tested and refined through countless generations of natural selection. Convergent evolution demonstrates how similar environmental challenges repeatedly lead to similar solutions, even in distantly related lineages. The development of echolocation in both bats and certain moths represents independent evolutionary discoveries of the same acoustic navigation principles. When moths evolved the ability to detect bat sonar calls and execute evasive maneuvers, they created an evolutionary arms race that has continued for millions of years, with each side developing increasingly sophisticated capabilities. Coevolution between insects and their environment has created some of the most intricate biological relationships on Earth. The partnership between flowering plants and their insect pollinators represents one of evolution's greatest collaborative achievements, with each group driving adaptations in the other that have transformed terrestrial ecosystems. The length of a flower's nectar tube and the corresponding length of its pollinator's proboscis can evolve together with such precision that they appear designed by a master engineer. The evolution of flight represents perhaps the most transformative adaptation in insect history, opening three-dimensional aerial environments that were previously inaccessible to arthropods. This innovation required coordinated changes in body structure, muscle organization, nervous system function, and metabolic capacity. The first insects to achieve powered flight gained access to new food sources, escape routes from predators, and opportunities for long-distance dispersal that dramatically expanded their evolutionary possibilities. Wing evolution demonstrates how complex structures can emerge through incremental modifications of simpler precursors. The earliest insect wings likely evolved from gill plates that provided underwater propulsion, gradually becoming modified for aerial locomotion as insects colonized terrestrial environments. The diversity of modern wing designs, from the transparent membranes of dragonflies to the scale-covered wings of butterflies, shows how this basic innovation has been elaborated into countless specialized forms. Social evolution in insects reveals how individual balance can give rise to collective intelligence that transcends the capabilities of isolated organisms. The transition from solitary to social living required fundamental changes in behavior, communication systems, and reproductive strategies. Eusocial insects like ants and bees have achieved forms of cooperation that approach the integration level seen in multicellular organisms, with specialized castes functioning like organs within a superorganism. The evolution of metamorphosis allowed insects to exploit different ecological niches during different life stages, effectively living multiple lives within a single generation. A caterpillar specialized for rapid growth and feeding can transform into a butterfly optimized for reproduction and dispersal. This developmental flexibility reduces competition between juveniles and adults while maximizing the exploitation of seasonal resources. Defensive adaptations reveal the ongoing evolutionary dialogue between predators and prey that has shaped insect form and behavior across deep time. The evolution of warning coloration in toxic species created opportunities for harmless mimics to evolve similar appearances, leading to complex mimicry rings where multiple species converge on shared warning signals. These relationships continue to evolve as predators develop new detection abilities and prey species refine their deceptive strategies. Biochemical evolution has equipped insects with sophisticated molecular machinery for processing toxins, digesting unusual foods, and surviving environmental extremes. Some insects have evolved the ability to sequester plant toxins and concentrate them for their own defense, turning the chemical defenses of their food plants into personal protection systems. Others have developed enzymes that allow them to digest cellulose, wax, or other materials that are inedible to most animals. Sensory evolution has created remarkable diversity in how insects perceive and navigate their world. The compound eyes of different species are tuned to detect specific wavelengths of light, polarization patterns, or movement characteristics that are most relevant to their lifestyle. Some insects can perceive ultraviolet patterns invisible to human eyes, while others are sensitive to infrared radiation or electrical fields that reveal hidden information about their environment. Reproductive strategies show enormous evolutionary creativity in balancing the competing demands of finding mates, avoiding predators, and ensuring offspring survival. The elaborate courtship displays of many insects represent evolutionary solutions to the challenge of species recognition, allowing individuals to identify appropriate mates while avoiding costly mating mistakes. Some species have evolved complex life cycles that separate mating from egg laying in time and space, reducing the risk that reproductive activities will attract predators to vulnerable offspring. Evolutionary responses to environmental change demonstrate the dynamic nature of biological balance, with species continuously tracking shifting conditions through genetic adaptation. The rapid evolution of pesticide resistance in agricultural pest species shows how quickly insects can adapt to new, selective pressures. Similarly, some insects have evolved tolerance to urban pollution or the ability to exploit novel food sources introduced by human activities. Island evolution provides natural laboratories for studying how isolation influences evolutionary balance. Island insects often evolve unusual characteristics compared to their mainland relatives, sometimes becoming flightless when predators are absent or developing gigantic size when ecological niches are unfilled. These evolutionary experiments reveal how environmental context shapes the optimal solutions to balance challenges. Fossil evidence documents the long history of evolutionary experimentation in insect design, showing us extinct lineages that explored alternative solutions to fundamental biological challenges. Some Paleozoic insects achieved wingspans of over 2 feet, made possible by higher atmospheric oxygen levels that supported more efficient respiration. These ancient giants remind us that current insect forms represent just one set of solutions among many that evolution has tested. Molecular evolution studies reveal how genetic changes accumulate over time to create the phenotypic diversity we observe in modern insects. The evolution of developmental control genes has allowed major changes in body plan organization, while the duplication and divergence of enzyme genes has created new metabolic capabilities. Understanding these molecular mechanisms helps explain how complex adaptations can evolve through gradual genetic changes. Sexual selection has driven the evolution of elaborate ornaments and behaviors that seem to contradict survival-based natural selection, yet contribute to overall evolutionary balance by ensuring successful reproduction. The spectacular colors of many butterflies, the enlarged mandibles of stag beetles, and the complex songs of crickets all represent investments in sexual attractiveness that must be balanced against survival costs. Evolutionary constraints demonstrate that adaptation is not limitless, but operates within boundaries imposed by physical laws, developmental mechanisms, and evolutionary history. The body plan of insects, with 3 body segments and 6 legs, has remained remarkably stable for over 400 million years, suggesting that this basic architecture represents a fundamental solution to terrestrial arthropod biology that is difficult to improve upon. Adaptive radiation occurs when evolutionary lineages rapidly diversify to exploit newly available ecological opportunities. The evolution of herbivory in insects coincided with the diversification of flowering plants, creating opportunities for specialized feeding relationships that drove much of modern insect diversity. Each plant family that evolved new chemical defenses created opportunities for insects to evolve corresponding tolerance mechanisms. Evolutionary trade offs reveal that adaptation often involves compromises between competing functional demands. Wings that are optimized for fast flight may be poor for slow, maneuverable flight. Sensory systems tuned for detecting one type of signal may be less sensitive to others. These trade offs help explain why no single insect species dominates all ecological niches, instead, leading to the remarkable diversity of specialized forms we observe today. The study of evolutionary balance provides insights into fundamental questions about the nature of adaptation and the direction of evolutionary change. While evolution lacks foresight and cannot plan for future challenges, it creates populations that are continuously prepared for environmental variation through genetic diversity and phenotypic flexibility. As we contemplate our ancient fly, preserved in amber, we see not just a single individual, but a representative of countless generations that contributed to its evolutionary lineage. Each generation faced the challenge of maintaining balance in their particular time and place, passing successful adaptations to their descendants while testing new variations that might prove useful in future environments. In this endless cycle of variation and selection, we discover that the balance we observe in modern insects represents not a final achievement, but a temporary solution in an ongoing evolutionary experiment that will continue for as long as life persists on Earth. In the gentle twilight of a suburban garden, a solitary firefly blinks its ancient code among the roses, its light seeming dimmer somehow against the backdrop of streetlights and porch lamps that illuminate the human landscape. This single insect carries within its tiny frame the accumulated wisdom of millions of years of evolution, yet its future depends increasingly on decisions made by a species that has only recently begun to understand the delicate balance that sustains the natural world. The relationship between humans and insects has undergone profound transformation over the past century, shifting from one of relatively modest local impact to global influence that touches virtually every aspect of insect ecology. As human populations have grown and technology has advanced, our species has inadvertently become the dominant force shaping insect communities worldwide, creating both unprecedented challenges and unexpected opportunities for conservation. Habitat fragmentation represents one of the most pervasive impacts of human development on insect populations. What were once continuous forests, grasslands, and wetlands have been divided into isolated patches separated by roads, agricultural fields, and urban development. For insects that require specific host plants, overwintering sites, or movement corridors, this fragmentation can effectively eliminate habitat even when individual patches remain intact. The effects of fragmentation extend beyond simple habitat loss to include edge effects that alter environmental conditions within remaining habitat patches. Forest edges experience greater temperature fluctuations, increased wind exposure, and altered humidity patterns compared to forest interiors. These edge effects can penetrate hundreds of meters into forest fragments, fundamentally changing the microenvironments that insects depend on for survival. Agricultural intensification has created landscapes dominated by monocultures that provide abundant resources for pest species while offering little support for the diverse insect communities that characterize natural ecosystems. The widespread use of pesticides has further simplified these agricultural ecosystems by eliminating both target pests and beneficial insects that provide natural pest control services. The decline of pollinating insects in many regions has highlighted the critical importance of insects for human food security. Many crops depend entirely on insect pollination for fruit and seed production, making the health of pollinator populations a direct concern for agricultural sustainability. The mysterious colony collapse disorder affecting honeybees serves as a stark reminder of how dependent modern agriculture has become on managed insect populations. Climate change poses perhaps the greatest long-term challenge to insect conservation, altering temperature and precipitation patterns faster than many species can adapt through evolutionary processes. Rising temperatures are shifting the geographic ranges of many insects, forcing species to track suitable climatic conditions by moving toward higher latitudes or elevations. Some species may find their ranges compressed or eliminated entirely as suitable climate zones shift beyond their dispersal capabilities. The timing of life cycle events is becoming increasingly mismatched with environmental cues as climate patterns change. Many insects rely on temperature and day length signals to coordinate reproduction, migration, and dormancy with seasonal resource availability. As these patterns shift, some species may emerge before their food plants have leafed out or begin migration before weather conditions are suitable for travel. Urban environments create novel ecosystems that present both challenges and opportunities for insect conservation. Cities tend to support simplified insect communities dominated by generalist species, but urban green spaces can serve as important refugia for native species if properly designed and managed. Gardens, parks, and green roofs provide opportunities for creating habitat corridors that connect fragmented natural areas. Light pollution has emerged as an unexpected threat to many insect species, particularly those that are active at night. Artificial lighting can disrupt navigation systems that evolved to use celestial cues, leading to disorientation and increased mortality. Moths and other nocturnal insects may be drawn to artificial lights, where they exhaust themselves flying around the light source or become easy targets for predators. Invasive species introductions have created novel competitive and predatory pressures that can destabilize established insect communities. Non-native insects arriving in new regions often lack the natural enemies that controlled their populations in their native ranges, allowing them to reach population densities that can overwhelm native species. Some invasive insects have also brought diseases or parasites that affect native species with no evolutionary resistance. Chemical pollution from industrial activities, agricultural runoff, and urban waste streams affects insect populations through direct toxicity and indirect effects on food webs. Even low levels of chemical contamination can disrupt endocrine systems, impair reproductive success, or weaken immune function in ways that make insects more vulnerable to other stresses. The rapid pace of environmental change has outstripped the ability of many conservation strategies to respond effectively. Traditional approaches to species protection that focus on preserving specific habitats may be inadequate when those habitats are becoming unsuitable due to climate change or other human impacts. Conservation biologists are increasingly adopting dynamic approaches that help species and ecosystems adapt to changing conditions. Assisted migration represents one controversial conservation strategy where humans actively move species to new locations where they are more likely to survive under future climate conditions. For insects with limited dispersal ability, such interventions might be necessary to prevent extinctions, but they also carry risks of creating new invasive species, problems, or disrupting existing ecological relationships. Habitat restoration projects are demonstrating the remarkable resilience of many insect communities when appropriate conditions are recreated. Prairie restorations, wetland reconstructions, and forest regeneration projects often support diverse insect communities within just a few years of establishment. These successes suggest that conservation efforts can be effective if they address the fundamental habitat requirements of target species. Pollinator gardens and wildlife friendly landscaping practices are creating opportunities for individual citizens to contribute to insect conservation. By choosing native plants, avoiding pesticides, and providing nesting sites, homeowners and land managers can create stepping stone habitats that support insect movement across fragmented landscapes. Agricultural practices are evolving to better integrate insect conservation with food production through approaches such as integrated pest management, cover cropping, and maintaining field margins with native vegetation. These practices recognize that sustainable agriculture depends on maintaining the ecological services provided by beneficial insects. Citizen science programs are engaging thousands of volunteers in monitoring insect populations and documenting changes in distribution and abundance. Projects like butterfly counts, bee surveys, and pollinator observations are generating valuable data while building public awareness of insect conservation issues. Ex situ conservation efforts, including insect breeding programs and genetic repositories, are being developed for the most threatened species. While these approaches cannot replace habitat conservation, they provide insurance against extinction and opportunities to reintroduce species to restored habitats. International cooperation is becoming increasingly important for insect conservation as many species migrate across national boundaries or respond to global environmental changes. Protecting monarch butterfly populations, for example, requires coordinated conservation efforts across Mexico, the United States, and Canada. The economic value of insects for ecosystem services like pollination, pest control, and decomposition is being quantified to support conservation arguments. Studies suggest that the economic benefits provided by insects far exceed the costs of conservation programs, making insect protection not just an environmental imperative, but an economic necessity. Education and outreach programs are working to overcome negative perceptions of insects and build appreciation for their ecological importance. Many people's fear or dislike of insects stems from lack of knowledge about their behavior and ecological roles. Educational programs that highlight the beauty, complexity, and importance of insects can build public support for conservation efforts. Research into insect ecology continues to reveal new aspects of their biology that are relevant to conservation planning. Recent discoveries about the importance of soil-dwelling insects, the complexity of plant-insect chemical communication, and the role of insects in nutrient cycling are informing more sophisticated conservation strategies. Technology is providing new tools for monitoring and protecting insect populations. Automated monitoring systems, genetic techniques for identifying cryptic species, and remote sensing technologies for habitat assessment are improving our ability to detect population changes and design effective conservation interventions. The challenge of insect conservation ultimately reflects broader questions about humanity's relationship with the natural world. As we develop the power to profoundly alter global ecosystems, we also bear responsibility for understanding and minimizing the unintended consequences of our actions. The future of insect diversity depends on our ability to balance human needs with the requirements of the countless small creatures that maintain the ecological processes upon which all life depends. As our suburban firefly continues its solitary display, it serves as both warning and hope. Warning that the intricate balance of the natural world can be disrupted more easily than it can be restored, but hope that growing awareness of our impact creates opportunities for more thoughtful stewardship of the Earth's remarkable biological heritage. In the hushed corridors of a research laboratory, engineers study the high-speed footage of a dragonfly in flight, frame by frame, dissecting the subtle wing movements that allow this ancient aerial master to outmaneuver the most sophisticated aircraft. The delicate interplay of forces that keeps the dragonfly aloft represents millions of years of evolutionary refinement, a natural technology that human innovation is only beginning to understand and attempt to replicate. This is the realm of biomimicry, where the balanced solutions that insects have discovered become inspiration for human technologies that could reshape our world. The study of insect balance has provided a treasure trove of engineering insights that span fields from robotics and materials science to architecture and medicine. Each aspect of insect biology that we have explored represents not just a fascinating adaptation, but a potential solution to human technological challenges. The six-legged walking gait that provides stability on uneven terrain has inspired the design of walking robots that can navigate disaster zones too dangerous for human rescuers. Robotic applications of insect locomotion demonstrate how simple biological principles can solve complex engineering problems. The alternating tripod gait used by insects creates inherently stable movement that requires minimal computational oversight, making it ideal for autonomous robots operating in unpredictable environments. Engineers have developed walking machines that use insect-inspired gaits to climb stairs, navigate rough terrain, and even walk on walls using gecko-inspired adhesive systems. Flying robots based on insect flight mechanics are beginning to achieve the agility and efficiency that have long been the exclusive domain of biological flyers. By studying how flies stabilize their flight using visual feedback and how bees navigate using polarized light patterns, researchers are developing micro air vehicles that could revolutionize search and rescue operations, environmental monitoring, and even space exploration. The compound eye design that provides insects with exceptional motion detection capabilities has inspired new types of camera systems and visual sensors. Artificial compound eyes can detect movement more quickly than conventional cameras while using less computational power, making them valuable for applications ranging from collision avoidance systems in automobiles to motion-triggered security devices. Sensor technologies based on insect sensory systems are opening new possibilities for environmental monitoring and medical diagnostics. The ability of insects to detect minute chemical concentrations has inspired the development of artificial noses that can identify explosive compounds, diagnose diseases through breath analysis, or monitor air quality with unprecedented sensitivity. These biomimetic sensors often surpass conventional electronic devices in both sensitivity and selectivity. Swarm intelligence algorithms derived from the study of social insect behavior, are transforming how we approach complex optimization problems. Ant colony optimization techniques, inspired by how ants find the shortest paths between food sources and their nests, are being used to design efficient transportation networks, optimize manufacturing processes, and even route internet traffic. The collective decision making processes observed in bee colonies have inspired new approaches to artificial intelligence and machine learning. Algorithms that mimic the way bees evaluate and choose between different food sources are being applied to problems ranging from financial market analysis to medical diagnosis, where multiple sources of uncertain information must be integrated to make optimal decisions. Architectural innovations based on insect construction techniques are leading to more efficient and sustainable building designs. The ventilation systems in termite mounds, which maintain stable temperatures without mechanical cooling, have inspired passive climate control systems for buildings in hot climates. These bio-inspired designs can significantly reduce energy consumption while maintaining comfortable indoor environments. Structural engineering has borrowed from the lightweight yet strong construction principles found in insect exoskeletons and wings. The hollow construction and corrugated surfaces that provide strength without excessive weight in insect bodies are being incorporated into building materials, aircraft components, and automotive parts. These designs can achieve remarkable strength to weight ratios while using minimal materials. Materials science continues to discover new applications for the principles underlying insect structures and surfaces. The water-repelling properties of lotus leaves and water strider legs have inspired self-cleaning surfaces that could reduce maintenance costs for buildings and vehicles. The iridescent colors of butterfly wings, created through microscopic structures rather than pigments, are being replicated to create new types of displays and optical devices. Adhesive technologies based on the dry adhesion systems used by climbing insects are opening possibilities for reusable fasteners that work in extreme environments. Unlike chemical adhesives that can fail in high temperatures or vacuum conditions, gecko and insect-inspired adhesives rely on physical forces that remain effective across a wide range of conditions. Medical applications of insect-inspired technologies are beginning to emerge in fields ranging from drug delivery to surgical instruments. The hypodermic needle design of mosquito mouthparts, which can penetrate skin almost painlessly, is inspiring new types of medical needles that could reduce patient discomfort during injections and blood draws. Microfluidics devices that mimic the circulatory systems of insects are being developed for lab-on-a-chip, applications that can perform complex chemical analyses using tiny samples. These systems could revolutionize medical diagnostics by enabling rapid, inexpensive testing that can be performed at the point of care rather than in centralized laboratories. The study of insect metamorphosis is providing insights into controlled self-assembly processes that could transform manufacturing. Understanding how insects completely reorganize their body structure during development might lead to materials that can reconfigure themselves in response to environmental changes, or robots that can transform their shape to match changing mission requirements. Energy harvesting technologies inspired by insect physiology are exploring how to capture and store energy from environmental sources. The way insects convert stored fats into flight energy has inspired new approaches to energy storage, while the efficiency of insect flight muscles is informing the design of more efficient motors and actuators. Navigation technologies based on insect orientation mechanisms are improving autonomous vehicle systems and robotic navigation. The ability of insects to navigate using visual landmarks, polarized light patterns, and magnetic field detection is being incorporated into navigation systems that can function when GPS signals are unavailable or unreliable. Distributed computing systems inspired by insect nervous systems are exploring alternatives to centralized processing architectures. The way insects coordinate complex behaviors through relatively simple neural networks suggests approaches to parallel processing that could make computer systems more robust and efficient. Communication technologies are benefiting from studies of how insects transmit information through chemical, visual, and acoustic signals. Understanding how ants maintain communication networks using chemical trails could inspire new approaches to wireless communication that are more resilient to interference and require less energy. Environmental monitoring systems based on insect sensing capabilities are providing new tools for detecting pollution, tracking climate change, and monitoring ecosystem health. Artificial systems that mimic how insects detect environmental chemicals could provide early warning systems for toxic spills or help track the effectiveness of pollution control measures. Agricultural technologies inspired by insect behavior are improving crop production while reducing environmental impact. Understanding how beneficial insects locate and control pest populations is informing the development of biological control systems that work with natural ecological processes rather than against them. The integration of multiple insect inspired technologies is beginning to create systems that approach the complexity and capabilities of their biological models. Researchers are working toward autonomous systems that combine insect inspired locomotion, sensing, navigation, and decision making into integrated platforms that could operate independently for extended periods. Educational applications of biomimicry research are inspiring new approaches to science and engineering education. By studying how natural systems solve complex problems, students gain appreciation for both biological complexity and engineering principles while developing problem solving skills that bridge scientific disciplines. The philosophical implications of biomimicry extend beyond technological applications to influence how we think about innovation and sustainability. Learning from natural systems that have achieved remarkable efficiency through evolutionary processes suggests approaches to human technology that work with natural principles rather than against them. Limitations and challenges in biomimicry research remind us that biological systems are often more complex than they initially appear. Successfully replicating insect capabilities in artificial systems requires deep understanding of the underlying physics and chemistry, not just superficial copying of biological forms. Future directions in insect inspired technology point toward increasingly sophisticated systems that integrate multiple biological principles. As our understanding of insect biology deepens and our technological capabilities advance, the potential for creating artificial systems that match or exceed biological performance continues to grow. As we observe the dragonfly completing its graceful flight outside the laboratory window, we are reminded that nature has already solved many of the engineering challenges that human technology is only beginning to address. In the patient study of insect balance and the careful application of biological principles to human technologies, we discover not just new capabilities, but new ways of thinking about the relationship between human innovation and the natural world that has always been our greatest teacher. In the final moments before sunset, when the day's heat begins to dissipate and shadows grow long across the garden, a small spider settles into the center of her web, legs delicately positioned to sense the slightest vibration that might indicate prey or predator. Her patient stillness embodies a profound truth that extends far beyond the mechanics of arachnid survival, that true balance often emerges not from constant activity, but from knowing when to act and when to wait, when to exert effort, and when to trust in the systems that sustain us. The study of insect balance throughout these chapters has revealed principles that transcend the specific mechanisms of six-legged locomotion or compound eye function, touching on fundamental questions about how complex systems maintain stability in an uncertain world. In the quiet persistence of these small creatures, we find metaphors and insights that illuminate broader patterns of existence, from the cellular processes that sustain life to the social systems that organize human communities. The relationship between simplicity and complexity in insect systems challenges our assumptions about what is required to achieve sophisticated outcomes. A worker ant, following simple rules about when to lay down pheromone trails, contributes to collective behaviors that can solve complex optimization problems. This emergence of intelligence from simple interactions suggests that effectiveness often lies not in complicated solutions, but in well-designed simple ones that can interact in powerful ways. The concept of distributed control that characterizes insect nervous systems offers alternative models for thinking about organization and decision making. Rather than relying on centralized command structures, insects demonstrate how robust systems can emerge from networks of semi-autonomous components that coordinate through local interactions. This principle has implications that extend from computer network design to organizational management, suggesting that resilience often comes from distributing rather than concentrating control. The temporal dimension of insect balance reveals the importance of timing in all balanced systems. The seasonal rhythms that coordinate insect life cycles with environmental changes remind us that sustainability requires operating in harmony with larger cycles rather than attempting to impose our own timing on natural processes. The patience of insects that wait months or years for optimal conditions to reproduce or emerge challenges our culture of immediate gratification. Resource management strategies observed in insect communities demonstrate how balance can be maintained even with limited resources through careful allocation and waste reduction. The efficiency with which insects extract energy from their food and convert it to useful work approaches theoretical limits, suggesting that true abundance might come not from having more resources, but from using them more wisely. The adaptive flexibility displayed by insects in response to environmental change illustrates the value of resilience over rigidity in maintaining balance. Insects that can modify their behavior, physiology, or development in response to changing conditions often thrive in environments that eliminate less adaptable species. This biological lesson suggests that maintaining balance requires building in capacity for change rather than trying to prevent it. The evolutionary perspective on balance reveals it as a dynamic rather than static condition, continuously adjusting to new challenges and opportunities. The fact that insects have maintained their fundamental body plan for hundreds of millions of years, while diversifying into countless specialized forms, suggests that true balance involves maintaining core stability while allowing for peripheral innovation. Social insect colonies demonstrate how individual balance can scale up to create collective intelligence that transcends the capabilities of any single organism. The coordination achieved by honeybee colonies or ant societies emerges from individuals following relatively simple behavioral rules, yet the collective outcomes show planning, problem solving, and adaptability that approach the complexity of vertebrate cognition. The precision with which insects navigate their sensory worlds, detecting chemical gradients that are imperceptible to human senses or responding to visual cues that exist at the edge of physical possibility, suggests that balance often requires heightened awareness of subtle environmental signals. This sensitivity to feedback allows for early detection of problems and gentle corrections before major adjustments become necessary. The integration of multiple systems that characterizes insect biology illustrates how true balance emerges from the coordination of diverse functions rather than the optimization of any single characteristic. No insect is the fastest, strongest, or most efficient at any particular function, but their success comes from achieving adequate performance across all the functions necessary for survival. The relationship between individual and collective behavior in insect societies provides models for thinking about how personal balance relates to community well being. Worker ants that sacrifice immediate individual benefits for colony welfare demonstrate how personal balance sometimes requires subordinating individual optimization to larger purposes that ultimately benefit everyone. The cyclical nature of many insect processes, from daily activity rhythms to seasonal migrations, reminds us that balance is often maintained through recurring patterns rather than constant states. Like the beating of a heart or the rhythm of breathing, stability can emerge from regular oscillations rather than static equilibrium. The remarkable efficiency of insect systems, achieving complex outcomes with minimal energy expenditure and simple neural machinery, suggests that effectiveness often comes from working with natural principles rather than against them. The ease with which insects maintain balance when they are healthy contrasts sharply with the energy required to restore balance when systems are disrupted. The vulnerability of insect communities to environmental disruption reveals how balance, once lost, can be difficult to restore. The rapid declines in pollinator populations and the emergence of pest outbreaks when natural control systems are disrupted illustrate how quickly stable systems can become unstable when key components are removed. The interdependence revealed by ecological studies of insect communities demonstrates that individual balance is intimately connected to the balance of larger systems. An insect's ability to maintain its own equilibrium depends on the health of its food plants, the presence of suitable habitat, and the stability of the broader ecological community of which it is part. The patience displayed by insects in their life cycles, with some species waiting years or even decades for optimal conditions to complete reproduction, offers a counterpoint to human tendencies toward immediate action and rapid results. This biological patience suggests that lasting balance often requires accepting longer timescales for achieving goals. The diversity of solutions that different insect species have evolved for similar challenges illustrates that there is rarely a single correct approach to maintaining balance. The variety of wing designs, sensory systems, and social organizations found among insects suggests that balance can be achieved through many different strategies, each adapted to specific circumstances. The beauty that emerges from balanced insect systems, from the intricate patterns of butterfly wings to the geometric precision of honeycomb construction, suggests that aesthetic appeal often accompanies functional efficiency. This connection between beauty and function implies that solutions that feel right often are right, and that sustainability and attractiveness need not be opposing goals. The study of insect conservation reveals how human activities can either support or disrupt natural balance, highlighting our responsibility as conscious participants in larger systems. The choice between creating environments that support diverse insect communities versus simplified systems dominated by pest species reflects broader decisions about the kind of world we want to inhabit. The applications of insect inspired technologies demonstrate how learning from natural systems can lead to human innovations that work with rather than against natural principles. The success of biomimetic approaches suggests that sustainable human technologies might emerge from understanding and emulating the balanced solutions that evolution has already discovered. As darkness finally settles over the garden and our spider remains motionless in her web, we are reminded that balance is not a destination, but a continuous process of adjustment and readjustment. In the patient vigilance of this small predator, we see reflected the ongoing attentiveness that all balanced systems require, the constant monitoring and gentle corrections that maintain stability in an ever changing world. The lessons from insect balance suggest that our own equilibrium might emerge not from trying to control every variable in our lives, but from developing the sensitivity to detect when adjustments are needed and the wisdom to make those adjustments gently and persistently. Like the insects that have thrived for hundreds of millions of years through countless environmental changes, we might find our own balance by learning to work with the larger rhythms and patterns that sustain all life. As night settles completely over the natural world, the quiet symphony of insect activity continues in countless hidden places, each small participant maintaining its part in an ancient performance that has persisted through geological ages. In grass stems and soil crevices, beneath bark and within flower petals, millions of tiny beings continue the delicate work of balance that sustains the living systems of our planet. Their persistent presence reminds us that, while individual lives may be brief, the principles they embody endure across timescales that dwarf human experience. Our journey through the world of insect balance has revealed a tapestry of interconnected principles that operate across every level of biological organization. From the molecular mechanisms that regulate cellular function to the global patterns that coordinate migration across continents, we have discovered that balance emerges not from any single process, but from the integration of countless small adjustments that collectively maintain stability within endless change. The physical balance that allows insects to navigate their three-dimensional world depends on the precise coordination of sensory input, neural processing, and motor output. The compound eyes that detect the slightest movement, the mechanoreceptors that monitor each step, and the neural networks that coordinate six-legged locomotion work together to create the graceful efficiency we observe in insect movement. These systems demonstrate how complexity can emerge from relatively simple components when they are properly integrated and coordinated. The sensory worlds that insects inhabit reveal dimensions of experience that extend far beyond human perception. In their ability to detect chemical gradients measured in molecules per million, to navigate using polarized light patterns invisible to our eyes, and to perceive vibrations that escape our notice, insects demonstrate that reality contains far more information than any single perspective can encompass. Their specialized sensory systems remind us that our own perception of the world represents just one narrow slice of a much richer sensory universe. The neural mechanisms that process this sensory information and coordinate appropriate responses achieve remarkable efficiency through principles of distributed control and parallel processing. Rather than relying on centralized command systems, insect nervous systems demonstrate how intelligent behavior can emerge from networks of relatively simple components that interact through local rules. These biological networks offer models for resilient systems that maintain function even when individual components fail. The social dimensions of insect balance reveal how individual stability can scale up to create collective intelligence that exceeds the capabilities of any single organism. The coordination achieved by social insect colonies through simple communication protocols and division of labor demonstrates how complex problems can be solved through distributed cooperation rather than centralized planning. These societies achieve remarkable feats of engineering, organization, and collective decision making while maintaining the flexibility to adapt to changing circumstances. The ecological relationships that connect insects to their broader communities illustrate how individual balance depends on the health of larger systems. The pollination partnerships between insects and flowering plants, the predator prey relationships that regulate population dynamics, and the decomposition processes that recycle nutrients all demonstrate that no organism exists in isolation. The balance of each individual depends on maintaining the balance of the whole system. The temporal dimensions of insect balance reveal the importance of synchronizing biological processes with environmental rhythms. The seasonal migrations that track resource availability, the dormancy strategies that survive harsh conditions, and the precisely timed life cycles that coordinate reproduction with optimal environmental conditions all demonstrate how survival depends on operating in harmony with larger temporal patterns. The physiological mechanisms that maintain internal balance show how living systems achieve stability through constant adjustment rather than static equilibrium. The homeostatic responses that regulate temperature, water balance, and metabolic function demonstrate that health emerges from the ability to detect deviations from optimal conditions and make appropriate corrections. These self-regulating systems maintain function across a wide range of environmental conditions through feedback loops that automatically adjust internal processes. The energy management strategies that insects have evolved demonstrate how complex activities can be sustained with limited resources through careful allocation and efficient utilization. The foraging decisions that balance energy expenditure against potential rewards, the storage strategies that prepare for periods of scarcity, and the metabolic adjustments that optimize efficiency under varying conditions all illustrate principles of sustainable resource use. The habitat selection behaviors that allow insects to create optimal living conditions show how organisms actively shape their environment rather than passively accepting whatever conditions they encounter. Through careful choice of microenvironments, construction of protective shelters, and modification of local conditions, insects demonstrate how small actions can create significant improvements in living conditions. The population dynamics that regulate insect abundance reveal how stable communities emerge from the interaction of growth potential with environmental resistance. The feedback mechanisms that prevent exponential growth from continuing indefinitely, the density-dependent factors that automatically adjust population size to match resource availability, and the immigration and immigration patterns that connect local populations all contribute to maintaining community stability across landscapes. The evolutionary processes that have shaped insect diversity demonstrate how balance emerges over long time scales through the accumulated effects of countless small adjustments. The coevolutionary relationships between insects and their environment, the adaptive radiations that have produced remarkable diversity, and the conservation of fundamental body plans across millions of years all illustrate how stability and change can coexist within evolutionary systems. The human impacts on insect communities remind us that our own activities are now major factors influencing the balance of natural systems. The habitat fragmentation that disrupts movement patterns, the chemical pollution that affects physiological function, and the climate change that alters the environmental conditions to which insects are adapted all demonstrate our responsibility as conscious participants in global ecological systems. The biomimetic applications that apply insect inspired principles to human technologies suggest ways that we might develop more sustainable and efficient approaches to our own challenges. The walking robots inspired by insect locomotion, the sensor networks based on compound eye designs, and the organizational algorithms derived from social insect behavior all demonstrate how natural systems can inform human innovation. The philosophical insights that emerge from studying insect balance offer guidance for thinking about stability and resilience in our own lives and communities. The patience of organisms that wait for optimal conditions, the efficiency of systems that achieve complex outcomes through simple means, and the resilience of communities that maintain function despite individual failures all provide models for sustainable living. As we reach the end of our exploration, the insects around us continue their quiet work, maintaining the countless small balances that collectively sustain the living world. The ant colonies organizing their underground cities, the bees coordinating their collective activities, the solitary hunters patiently waiting for prey, and the decomposers quietly recycling nutrients all contribute to the vast web of relationships that maintains ecological stability. In their persistent attention to the immediate requirements of survival while participating in processes that extend far beyond their individual lives, insects embody a form of practical wisdom that balances present needs with future sustainability. Their success across hundreds of millions of years of environmental change demonstrates the value of maintaining core functions while remaining flexible enough to adapt to new circumstances. The gentle hum of night flying insects, the quiet rustle of creatures moving through leaf litter, and the almost inaudible sounds of tiny jaws processing plant material create a subtle soundtrack that accompanies our rest. These soft sounds remind us that while we sleep, the work of maintaining balance continues around us, carried out by countless small practitioners of the art of sustainable living. As consciousness fades and we join the natural rhythms of rest and restoration, we carry with us the understanding that balance is not a destination to be reached, but a process to be continuously maintained through patient attention to the subtle signals that guide all living systems. In the quiet persistence of insects maintaining their delicate equilibria throughout the night, we find a model for our own journey toward balance, sustainability, and peaceful coexistence with the natural world that sustains us all. The last thought that accompanies us into sleep might be gratitude for these small teachers who demonstrate daily that size is no measure of significance, that simplicity can achieve remarkable complexity, and that true balance emerges not from controlling every variable, but from learning to work harmoniously with the larger patterns that connect all life in an endless dance of mutual support and reciprocal care.